Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if banished Naruto refuses to help Konoha in Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by YAOIRULES92 and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, Banishment. It was a sunny day and not one cloud was in the sky to see. The birds chirped their songs and a gentle breath blew through the trees and their leaves. The shacking of the leaves made a hypnotizing dance on the floor with their shadows. You could see a person walking through the forest in the direction of Konoha. This person was a blonde youth with a sun-kissed tan and unruly blonde hair. On his cheeks he had whisker marks. 3 on each one. He wore a torn and bloody orange jumpsuit. He had bruises, cuts and blood all over him. He had on his back an unconscious figure. The figure was clad in a blue turtleneck shirt that was torn in several places. He wore white khaki shorts. He had a hairstyle that resembled the ass of a duck. The figure had cuts and bruises here and there, but not as bad as the blonde youth. The blonde youth jumped from tree to tree, glancing from time to time at the unconscious figure on his back. It was then that he noticed how a silver-haired man came in his direction. In front of the silver-haired person was a dog that the blonde youth recognized as Pakin and Kakashi. He smiled when he saw them and was glad that they were here now. He didn't have the strength anymore to make it to Konoha after losing so much blood and using so much chakra to stop Sasuke from going to Orochimaru. But it was worth it. His friend did not went to the snake. But the best part was that he kept his promise to Sakura. "Kakashi, they are right in front us," said Pakin while he jumped from branch to branch. It was then that his eyes widened at their sight. "Hurry up, they both are in need of medical attention," yelled Pakin when he saw in which state they were both in. Kakashi picked up his pace when he heard the yell from Pakin and saw both boys. It was not a nice sight to see. Naruto was barely standing and looked like he would pass out any moment now. He had blood everywhere. It was a wonder to him that he could still stand at all. "It could be the Kyuubi. But I doubt it. Then his cuts and bruises should have healed by now." He narrowed his eyes at that. Something was not right here. When Kyuubi did not heal Naruto all this time, then something must have happened that stopped it from doing so. But the big question was now, what did cause this? But before Kakashi could think of a reason, Naruto lost conscious and fell over. Were it not for his reflexes and his training, Naruto would have kissed the ground with Sasuke on his back. He could have injured himself and Sasuke more than they already were. Pakin was at his side and looked at both of them. Kakashi made a clone of himself and picked both of them up. It was then that they made their way back to the village as fast as they could and their legs would allow them to do. In a matter of an hour they reached the village Konoha with its mighty gates raising in the sky. Kakashi didn't even stop when the Chunins at the gate wanted to see his pass. He ran straight for the hospital. At the hospital he burst through the doors and nearly crashed into Tsunade. Tsunade wanted to scold him, but when she saw Naruto and Sasuke and in which condition they were both in, she just grabbed Naruto and yelled for medic nins to get their fat asses to her and help her. Kakashi collapsed on the floor. Finally his exhaustion caught up to him. He couldn't move and just wanted to drop dead, but he had 2 students that needed him now. Well, they needed Tsunade now and she wanted his report to how he had found them. Though he could only wait till he heard of them. While he waited he didn't even read his smut. Instead he made his way to the person who wants to know what happened to Naruto on this mission. The very person that Naruto saw as an older brother Mother Hen and trusted the most. He made his way to the academy in hopes to find Naruto's old sensei. Iruka. Academy with Iruka and Kakashi. Iruka was looking through papers from his last lesson. He sighed. This bunch of soon-to-be genins were more trouble than the last ones he had. That was saying something when he thought back to Naruto's days in here. A smile made his way to his face, but vanished when he saw Kakashi appearing in front of him with a worried expression on his face. Immediately Iruka knew it was about Naruto. It always was. Kakashi always came to him when he asked about Naruto. Though this had to be about Naruto too then. "What happened, Kakashi?" he asked barely above a whisper. The older shinobi. Kakashi sighed and closed his eyes. It was now time to tell Iruka the news about Naruto and what Sasuke had tried to do in the last few hours. "Well, Iruka, Sasuke tried to," with it a long explanation began. "But Tsunade and Naruto." Tsunade was sweating and praying to every kami she knows that Naruto would live. His condition and body were far worse in state than she first had thought. She didn't even knew why the Kyuubi hadn't started to heal Naruto. It was like something was blocking it from doing so. It was this reason why she feared for Naruto's life. The medic nins had even needed to switch a few minutes ago. They were running low on chakra, but Tsunade hadn't even moved from her spot since the beginning of the surgery from Naruto. Hours had went by already and she felt like it were a few seconds. It seemed like Naruto wouldn't live through the surgery. It seemed as if the necklace she gave him wanted to have his life. But she wouldn't let that damn thing have Naruto. No, not her little brother. And even if it should kill her, Naruto will live through this, damn it. Even if it was the last thing she would do. This necklace would not take another loved one away from her. Not in this life. Not ever. Tsunade began to sweat and glared at a medic that tried to leave the room, although they hadn't even had their part in it. She spoke in deadly voice. A voice with any emotions at all. Leave and I will make sure you will never find job ever again. I will make your life miserable and you would wish you had helped this day. Did I make myself clear to you? And I mean everyone of in here, don't even think about leaving and abandon Naruto right here. The medic nins nodded. They were too afraid of Tsunade in this moment to go against her. She was their Hokage, their chief, and would really do as she said if they would leave now. No one of them wanted this happening to them. Though they stayed. Hell, even some of them respected Naruto after he had saved them from Gaara in the Chunin exam. An hour later finally their healing and the surgery took their effects and Naruto's body began to heal. Even Kyuubi's healing abilities kicked finally in. Again a few hours later a sweat and blood-coated Tsunade left the surgery room in which Naruto was in. Behind her was the medic nin team that helped her. They were all exhausted and ready to drop dead on the ground. Tsunade had a grim expression on her face and Kakashi and Iruka feared the worst. Kakashi was the first to be there together with Iruka after he had explained everything to the teacher. Both looked worried at her, but when she smiled at them they sighed in relief. Not any one of them had noticed how Tsunade was in there with the medic nins for 2 whole days to heal Naruto. How is he, Tsunade-sama? Asked Iruka her in a shaking voice while glancing in the room in hopes to see Naruto. He is fine, Iruka. Although he had several broken ribs. His lungs were priced with them. He had a broken arm and his left arm was nearly crushed to dust. Cuts were all over his body along with poison in his system. Kyuubi hadn't even healed him when he reached us. But after finally the first 5 hours Naruto's condition and body began to stabilize itself. Kyuubi's healing finally kicked in too after another 7 hours. It was a relief to us. If it hadn't then Naruto might not have made it. But it is still a mystery to us why Kyuubi didn't heal him when he made his way back to Konoha or why it hadn't started to heal him when we began with the treatment at him. Tsunade sighed and left the two alone. She had to go to her office. If only she knew what surprise was waiting in her office for her. Then maybe she would have stayed in the hospital with Iruka and Kakashi to watch over Naruto. Naruto was placed in the same room as Sasuke, who was awake and saw how Naruto was brought into his room. Kakashi and Iruka were coming in shortly after Naruto's bed stood next to his. Sasuke hadn't that much injuries like Naruto, but still was a good few hours in surgery. He had waited all those hours to hear from his friend. He couldn't believe that Naruto was able to bring him back to Konoha and had thought about the words Naruto spoke to him while he was alone in his room. Sure, he was still angry that Naruto beat him and brought him back, but in Naruto's words was truth when he thought about it. He only wanted now to apologize to Naruto for his behavior against him. He surely hadn't thought about it before where Itachi and Orochimaru got their power. That all came to them while they were still in Konoha. He had never thought about this. And now that he thought about it, Naruto was right. Orochimaru was a pedophile gay ass. He shuddered when he thought about it. No way in hell would have Orochimaru use his body to do as he pleases. That was just wrong. That thought will haunt him forever even in his dreams. But when he thought about it, Orochimaru did look like a pedophile to him. With his long hair and that freaking long tongue of his. How is he Kakashi-sensei? He asked them while not taking his eyes off of Naruto with a sorrowful expression on his face. It was his fault that Naruto was in this state and was in the surgery for 2 whole days, nearly 3. Iruka was silent and just watched Naruto while taking Naruto's hand in his and squeezing it slightly. In hopes Naruto would awake if he does so. But no such luck. Naruto was motionless. He looked peaceful while he slept and didn't show any sign of discomfort. Kakashi answered Sasuke although he did not want to. He is fine now, Sasuke. No thanks to you. He said in a harsh voice, not even turning to him while answering. Kakashi didn't even turn to him when he spoke. His eyes firmly resting on Naruto's motionless body. He closed his eye and let a tear escape it before he took a shuddering breath and regaining his footing back. Sasuke flinched when he heard those words and the way they were spoken to him. He turned away not looking at them and kept silent. It was a few minutes later that he spoke again. I know what I did was wrong. But I did not thought back then. I only wanted to have the power to beat Itachi and get my revenge and nothing more. I haven't really used my brain. I am sorry for what I did to Naruto. He said in a sorrowful voice. Iruka laughed a hollow laugh when he heard those words. Naruto got the Uchiha to think and use his brain. That was Naruto for you, always bringing the good out in people. Don't apologize to us, Uchiha. Apologize to Naruto for what you have done. He is the one who has to forgive you, not us. He said to Sasuke in a hiss-like voice. Sasuke shrank back into his bed. He was not used to this tone. He didn't know how to handle the situation now. It was new to him. He baled his fist and wished he could turn time back then, maybe this wouldn't have happened at all. He frowned and he closed his eyes. He leaned back into his bed and glanced at Naruto's motionless figure. Maybe he should sleep a bit. But it was then that the silence was disturbed by two screeching voices. Sasuke flinched when he recognized the voices as Ino and Sakura's. He winced and hoped they didn't know he was in this room. "Sasuke-kun," yelled the two voices at the same time that would make you want to die. "No way forehead Sasuke-kun is mine. No way no pig Sasuke-kun is mine. No way he loves me more than you, he just hasn't realized it now," yelled a platinum blonde girl to a pink-haired girl. "In your dreams I am in the same team with him, Sasuke-kun loves me," yelled the pink-haired girl at the blonde. Both girls were fighting over their Sasuke-kun and to which he belonged. Sasuke was getting a headache like Iruka and Kakashi. If those two would not shut up in the next few seconds, something would happen. Something that neither of them would like. But before the shouting could continue, a nurse came into the room and glared at both girls and spoke in a deadly voice to them. "If you do not shut up this instead though that our patients can get their rest, I have to remove you from here and make sure you are not allowed to enter this hospital ever again. Did I made myself clear? One of this patients in this room comes out of his surgery that nearly had gone on for 3 days. He needs his rest right now, and when you two bimbos only say or utter one word, I will tell Tsunade-sama about this," she said with narrowed eyes at Ino and Sakura while she hissed the last part at them and then began to check up on Naruto and Sasuke. "I see, Uchiha-san, that you are awake. That is good to see," she said with a small forced smile and in a clipped voice. She didn't give him the time to answer. She went then over to Naruto and checked up on him. I see that Naruto is getting better. Poor boy. Had been nearly 3 days in surgery," she said with sympathy and shook her head. "Please tell me if he wakes up with it." She left. Sakura and Ino watched all this in stunned silence. The nurse didn't even give Sasuke a chance to answer her and ignored him while she worked on Naruto. Sakura and Ino thought that to be unfair when they saw this treatment. But the Uchiha silently agreed. After all, he did try to kill Naruto and brought him into this condition. He looked away in shame. Kakashi and Iruka still haven't turned to him in this whole time. They ignored him and concentrated on Naruto right now. This did not bode well for the annoying banshees and they voiced it out loud. "Well, actually I think even a banshee would be insulted with this statement. What the hell is so important about the baka anyways? He isn't important like Sasuke-kun," said Ino while glaring at Naruto's still form. "Yeah. The dope will never be like Sasuke-kun. He didn't even have the strength to beat him," said Sakura, having completely faith in her Sasuke. It was then that Sasuke snapped. He couldn't take it anymore that those two were talking like this about Naruto. His friend he thought of as a little brother. That he wanted to kill. He could repay him now a little bit, even though Naruto would never know about this. Maybe Kakashi and Iruka would tell him, but he highly doubted it. "Damn it, Sakura. Ino. Shut up," he roared at them. "How do you think I have gotten back here? With magic?" He snorted. "Naruto was the one who brought me back, you pathetic excuses of a kunoichi." It shut them up. Ino and Sakura looked dumbfounded at their crush. Eyes wide and mouth open like a gaping fish on land. Their Sasuke-kun would never talk like this to them. It had to be Naruto that did that. Only the dope would be like this to them. Shame they didn't use their brains, then they would know that Sasuke would say those things. He hated fangirls. He always showed it and never reacted to their presence for him. For the lack of better word. Sasuke-kun, we know this is not TR, but they were interrupted by Kakashi this time. "Sakura, Ino, shut the hell up," he said with venom in his voice. His eyes narrowed at the girls. "Naruto needs his rest after nearly dying, is that clear? I agree with Sasuke on this. And now leave before I am really getting pissed off." He glared at them. But Ino and Sakura didn't even move and he nearly yelled at them. "Now," he hissed out at them. Ino and Sakura were trembling by now. Kakashi didn't even notice how he let his killer intent out. Iruka didn't even try to stop him. He was far too concerned with Naruto's well-being right now. He did not have the time to pay attention to those around him. He was in worry for Naruto and nothing other interested him. Sasuke glanced again at Naruto's body in worry. Although the nurse and Tsunade had said he was fine. He knew Naruto. Something always happened to him. It was then that Neji entered the room and went over to Naruto, ignoring Sasuke and the trembling girls on the ground. That seemed to snap them out of it and they left in a hurry. "How is he, Iruka-san?" he asked in a soft voice. As if he was afraid that he would wake up Naruto. "He is fine, Neji," was the short reply. Iruka glanced at him and then smiled. "So you are the Neji Naruto said he saw as an older brother, huh?" "Indeed. But what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in your room?" asked Kakashi with a chuckle. Neji was red with embarrassment. "DAMN. But it's for Naruto. Poor Itato. You sneaked out to be here, right?" "Yes," he nodded at them. "I was in worry for him. We all know him and his way." Silence was in the room. Ino and Sakura finally stopped their trembling and had left the room long ago. It was silent and everyone was looking at Naruto again. Neji took a seat across from Iruka and looked at Naruto. Kakashi didn't have the nerves to be sitting in this moment and choose to stand. He sighed and looked at Naruto. Please wake up soon, Naruto. I have a bad feeling about all of this. Kakashi, Iruka and Neji at the same time. If only they knew how right they were. But Tsunade was in her office and slumped down into her seat. She needed the break right now and sake. To heal Naruto was a big deal and she had feared he would die in this time. She had feared the necklace would take its next victim in the surgery room. She turned her chair and looked out of the window down into the village. She sighed and leaned back into her chair and closed her eyes. Please Naruto, wake up soon. I don't know what I would do without you. We need you here. She sighed and turned around to find her secret sake stash. She took the bottle out and took a big gulp. It was in this moment that the council members entered her office without knocking. Inviting themselves in. She raised her eyebrow at them. Tsunade-sama, we have decided on the traitor Sasuke Uchiha and the demon Naruto Uzumaki. That got her interest. About Sasuke she knew, but why Naruto? This can't end well for both of them, she knew already this much. We want Uzumaki Naruto to be banished from Konoha due to the fact that he used the Kyuubi's chakra and is unstable with it. But the council member never got to finish the sentence about Naruto due to Tsunade slamming her fist down. Who the hell do you think you are? I am the Hokage and not you. My word is law and not yours. Who said that Naruto was unstable, huh? She hissed at them. No answer. Naruto nearly died thanks to the Uchiha brat and the Kyuubi didn't even heal him. Only after over nearly 12 hours in the surgery did the healing abilities finally kicked in. And did you even thought that the seal allowed Naruto to use the Kyuubi's chakra, though he can help the village with it, that the Yondaime wanted it this way, huh? Her words were spoken with venom at them. Her rage didn't die down. No, it only grew. Do you not trust the Yondaime? No answer. Do you think so lowly of him? Again no answer from the council. I thought so. Even if the seal was too weak. Don't you think that the fox would have already finished its job it had started all those years back, huh? That is not it, Tsunade-sama. The boy has no control over the chakra. Be happy we had decided on banishment. Original we had planned to execute him. Said Kaharu to the angered Tsunade in hopes to calm her down. But those words only added more fuel to the angered fire in her and she punched the nearest wall she could find. It crumbled and you could see outside at the streets of Konoha. She glared at them venomously. If looks could kill, those old farts would have wished to never enter this office in the first place. Tsunade looked like flames were surrounding her. She growled at them with her eyes narrowed. Daring them to say one wrong word. She waited for it to happen. Waiting to unleash her fury on them. Her wrath to show and give them her piece of her mind. The Daimyo had agreed to this. Even to the banishment of the Uchiha. And with that all hell broke loose. Tsunade was angered and went after them. They had done this behind her back. They will pay for this. No one plays with her and family and thinks to get away with it. No one, not as long she has a say in this. The council members trembled in fear when they felt Tsunade's killer intent sent at them. The civil half was passed out or had wet their pants or shit themselves. Tsunade smirked when she saw this reaction. She took a step forward and the members took a step back. She took another step forward and the members took a step back. She liked the way they reacted. Her smirk widened and the members looked frightened at her. She took one step again. That was the last straw for them and they fainted. Tsunade chuckled and exited her office as fast she could. She had to go to the hospital and get Naruto out of Konoha before something happened to him. She knew when Naruto would leave Konoha Danzo would send Na after him. Immediately when he stepped out of the gates. No, she couldn't let something like this happen to her little brother's son. Not after he had helped her to accept her past and get over it. Making her laugh again and accept this damn job. She laughed at this. Oh, the irony in all of that. How he will now never become Hokage after this. She shook her head and speed up. She had a hospital to reach. She was there in a matter of seconds and ran straight for Naruto's room. How she was surprised to find Neji in there. He should be in bed and rest to get his chakra back. She narrowed her eyes at him. But it seemed that he didn't notice her. His gaze was fixed on Naruto, who was still asleep and didn't seem to have awakened all this time. Everyone's gaze was fixed on him. It seemed that no one had noticed her entrance yet. She cleared her throat and caught everyone's attention. We have a serious discussion in front of us. She said in a stern voice and looked at all of them. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Asked Neji as he looked at her. He didn't trust that tone of her voice. It promised that something was not right here. The council wants to banish Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke for treason against the village and Naruto because of it. She said to them in a serious voice. She knew the Kakashi and Iruka know what she meant by it. I have bought us some time. It will take a few days till the council comes back to the living. She said with a light chuckle. What do you mean? Asked Kakashi her. But he had already a good idea of what she had done to them. You didn't, he trailed off when he saw the nod from her. I did. We have to get you and Naruto out of here. Ma, bolded Naruto is not leaving without me. I sure as hell does not let my Itato be out there without me. Neji said in a firm yet strong voice. I agree with Neji. I will leave too. Said Iruka while he smiled slightly at her. I can't leave him alone now. He is like my little brother. I will go with them. Who knows what they would do without someone looking after them. Said Kakashi with humor in his voice. It could be interesting. As much as me pain to hear this, Tsunade said with humor, clearly enjoying this. Her eyes said it all. We have to wait till Naruto whack. But she was interrupted when someone groaned. Naruto stirred in his sleep and groaned. He blinked a few times with his eyes to get the sleep out of them. It was then that he saw the white ceiling. "Great, I am in the hospital. Damn, I hope the team didn't left when I passed out. Yo baba," he said when he saw Tsunade, who twitched when she heard him call this. Naruto's mind escaped while all this happened. Naruto found himself lying on the ground. His eyes were closed and he noticed that the ground felt kind of wet to him. It was then that he groaned and began to wake fully up. He moaned from the pain and his body looked around. It was dark where he was. Light barely got in the place where he found himself. Naruto stood up and stretched. He felt how his tensed muscles loosened and felt a great deal better than before. He looked around and found himself in a sewer with many tunnels. Above each tunnel stood something. The one in front of him was dreams, left was his childhood, right was the nightmare section. A bit under it was the memory section and under this it said mask section. Across from it but a bit more to the left it went to the jutsu section. He turned around and found that above the tunnel behind him didn't stood anything. It was blank. The only thing that came from it was red chakra. He rose an eyebrow. Somehow this tunnel was familiar with him. It was like he had gone along this one already. But he couldn't remember a thing from it. He shrugged and went into the tunnel with the red chakra. The chakra made him feel uneasy but safe at the same time. He was confused. The red chakra felt as if it was supposed to be evil and scare him, but here it tried to make him feel comfortable. He didn't know what to think of it in this moment. Though he just followed it. Maybe the one at the end of this strange red chakra could help him here. He followed the red chakra. After a long walk he reached the end of the tunnel and found himself in front of a giant cage. It felt like hours to him to reach this place, but it was in reality only a few minutes. He looked around in hopes to find something else in the room besides the giant cage with the gold bars. It was then that he noticed that on the gates of the cage was a paper with the kanji for Ceylon. He cocked his head to the side. "What the hell?" It was then that two giant red eyes looked at him. He jumped back in surprise and heard a chuckle. The fox head began to become visible. The eyes were black outlined and Naruto could see razor-sharp white teeth. It looked like the fox was smirking at him and then it hit him. That was the Kyuubi no Yako in front of him. How the hell could he completely forgot about it? Seriously, how the hell did I do it? He asked himself out loud. The fox smirked. It knew what its prison was thinking. It had done this to see how Naruto would react to see it. But it had to get serious again and the smirk vanished. It had to explain something to the flesh bag, in his opinion at least he was one. It cleared his throat, catching the flesh bag's attention. Naruto snapped back to reality when he heard someone, or better said something, cleared its throat. He wasn't so sure if the fox has a gender or not. Maybe he should ask it. "Flesh bag, this is a serious matter while you are here. And don't even think to interrupt me. Or I will make your life a living hell. I will send you nightmares, ma." "I got it. Can you please just fucking continue?" Naruto yelled. "Fine. You just had to do this." The fox sulked and Naruto's sweat dropped. Talk about mood swings. But he knew he wasn't even better than this. "Well, first of all, I didn't heal you on your way back to this damn wretched village that you call your home. Is because of the fact that we merged thanks to that damn Uchiha brat. It should really have taken a few years more till I had to merge with you. Congratulations, brat, you are now the new Kyuubi no Yako. Full-fledged fox demon and king of Bijuus. Because the fucking Uchiha brat had to shove 3 or was it 4 chitteras through your chest." The fox growled. "But why are you still here?" "Well, brat, every demon is an inner beast, or how we call it, blood beast. It lets us transform in our animal form or takes over when we are really pissed off. I have taken it upon myself to be your blood beast. No way in hell would I leave this place. I still have caused so much chaos. Besides, I have to train you in your powers and that seal over there will help you not anymore. I am your blood beast. That means I am you like you are me and we are to work together now. Why don't you change this place here? It's your mind and I hate this place." Naruto had to agree with this. This place really needed to be changed. Maybe a forest would do. Well, he was a fox now and he had always loved the nature. Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated on a forest. When he opened his eyes he was standing in a clearing. In the clearing was its very own pond with fish in it. Wild flowers were around the pond and the trees reached the sky. What now was the new ceiling? The seal he couldn't find anywhere. The fox looked around and nodded in approve of this. It was better than the mindscape looked before. Now his mind looked like a forest. Not only this part when the fox remembered correctly. The clearing was big enough for it to sleep and lie down. Perfect. Even some small animals were here that he could hunt. A smirk made its way to its face. Not bad, brat. Well, now to your training schedule. I will train you in your dreams about your powers and teach you of the demon ways. Time in here runs different than outside. Even in your dreams. You could be dreaming for hours and in reality a few seconds or even minutes just passed by. Don't ask me about this. I have no idea about this. I only know about this because Kami herself told me about it. She wasn't even sure either how we do it. It could be the fact that our body shut itself down when we sleep to rebuild our reserves. Everything is slower then. But aside from this, we are beginning with your training now. Outside nothing will happen to you till you wake up. I think you should know that you're in surgery right now. Seemed that the old hag tries help you. Don't worry kid, you will live. But we have to train now. First comes chakra control. And no, even so you say you can do it already. You have new chakra that needs to be trained. Yaki to be exact. It is different from your human chakra. When the fox saw the confused look from Naruto, it knew it had to explain it to him. Who knew being a teacher was this hard? Yaki, brat, is more wild than your human chakra. It is hard to tame, whereas human chakra is already tamed. Yaki can go wild if you don't have trained with it. It can corrupt you when you don't train with it. But as you already have used my Yaki, that now is yours, you will not have this problem. Now you have to train it that you can use it like you used your human chakra. It has harder to control than your human one. And now begin. Naruto ran at the tree that was the nearest to him and began the exercise, while the fox began to tell him about the demon ways and throw kunes, senbons and shurikens at him. Even though the fox didn't have any arms and hands to aim and throw them at, being a teacher was fun for Thr Kyuubi. Boy fox. When he knew he had its attention, he continued, I wanted to know what is your name and what gender are you? I can't call you fox all the time, nor can I call you Kyuubi. Well, I am Kyuubi now. So? Asked Naruto, who was nearly hit by a kunai and fell down of the tree. Well, I am male and my name is Hero. Now back to the lesson. As you know, even we Yaokai have feelings. But most of us do not show them. It first angers our enemies and it is easier to control our blood beast then. You need to have this training too. Good, seems you mastered it. Now run the tree up and down till I tell you to stop. Now where was I? Blood beast, easier to control. Naruto said while dodging again a kunai. It went like this the whole time while he was there. He only did chakra control exercises. Nothing other. Not only built he more chakra while doing this, but it helped him to do his jutsu better. But before Naruto could do any more training the fox, well, Hero forced him to change his clothes. He had pouted to this, but the fox won in the end. Little did he know that the fox even changed his appearance. Back to present. Aki, what the hell happened to you? Don't answer that, we have to get you out of here with Sasuke together. The council has banished you too and Iruka, Neji and Kakashi are going with you. Tell us while we are on your way out. She ordered. Indeed, Naruto did change. His hair was longer thanks to Hero, who said he loved long hair. It reached his mid-back and was braided. If it were loose then it went over his butt. His figure was effeminate. He had long lashes and his eyes were a bit narrowed now. His pupils were slitted like the ones of a fox and still were the sapphire blue. His whisker marks were thinner and longer now. His hair was not only his golden blonde but had icy blue going through it too. He had curves all women would kill and die for. His clothes were now a red muscle shirt with a blue coat over it with the kanjis for Fox and King of Bijuas on his back. He wore black baggy pants and black sandals. On their way to the gates they made stops at everyone's home and got that what was needed. They didn't stop at Naruto's apartment. He claimed that he didn't need anything from it. When they reached the gate, he finished his story. Not one of them made a comment about it. Tsunade made it clear to them that they will write to her or she would hunt them down. They knew that this threat was not a joke from her. Of course she wants to hear from them even if it is a short letter. It is better than nothing for her. We will botch and no worries here. Naruto had exclaimed and she nearly punched him for that comment. But her fist never connected, instead she took him in hug. I know you will Gaki. Now leave before I change my mind. She said through her tears. You have to let go of me then first. He nearly sobbed out. It was hard for them to leave each other behind. Tsunade was like a mother to him. But now he had leave her behind after he found one for him. It was hard and Tsunade lost again a family member. Neji, Kakashi, Iruka and even Sasuke said nothing to this. Each of them knew how it is to lose someone dear to you. Sasuke with his family, Neji his father, Iruka his mother and father and Kakashi his second family, his teammates and sensei. It was better they said nothing. Tsunade let go of Naruto even though it was against her will. Immediately she missed the warmth of Naruto and let her tears fall. Naruto felt the same. He cracked a smile for her that more seemed like a grimace than a smile. "Be careful, Naruto. I always am," he said and then jumped away. The others followed him after him. She laughed at that. He even made jokes when it was about his own banishment. At a time like this where you would cry, he made jokes. She sighed and choked back her sobs. She never got to hear the last words Naruto whispered while leaving. "But you too, Aka-san." If she had heard them, then she would have broken down then and ran after him. Chapter 2 Meetings. Ichigo was paralyzed. He couldn't move thanks to his inner hollow, and it seemed that his end was drawing nearer with each passing second. His inner hollow was taunting him for it. Always telling to let him take over and he would live. That he didn't have the power to beat his opponent. That he was weak and useless. The giant fatso, Yami, was ready to fire his zero at him. Ichigo couldn't move nor do anything. He felt lost. He had failed his friends. Failed to protect them. And now they had all to pay for this. He shut his eyes. He didn't want to see this face of the smirking fatso. It was hard enough on him that he was to die already this young and didn't have the chance to stop this traitor Aizen. Damn this bastard to hell. But just when he thought the fatso Yami would fire his zero at them, he heard something that surprised him. "Bomb, oh come one Neji Nai. It was not my fault that Tsunade tried to kill you." The voice sounded happy, cheerful and was full with laughter. Ichigo knew this voice. It was the voice of the new student at his school. What was his name again? Naruto Uzumaki. Yes, that was the boy's name. Although he had first thought he was a girl when he saw him. The boy looked like a girl to him. But in PE he was proved wrong when Naruto came in the boys' locker room to change. Naruto was indeed a boy. He opened his eyes and the sight that greeted him let him gasp. Directly in front of him was Naruto standing on Yami. He had pinned the giant fatso down with only standing on him. How was that even possible? He had already a hard time to pin Yami down and he has his Bankai active. Damn it. Orihime and Chad were also astounded by this feat. Ulquiorra even let his shock shown by his eyes widening a slightly bit. But he got himself fast under control again. He had not thought someone would be able to take Yami down that easily. Not even without trying to do so and doing it with only standing on the 10th espada. Nonetheless a normal human. That was something Aizen-sama had to be informed of, thought the Quarta espada to himself. He studied the person in front of him. The person had golden blonde with an icy blue through it braided hair. He saw that the person had a lightly tanned skin and 3 whisker marks on each of his cheek. Although they were hard to see. They were very thin. His body was effeminate. It had curves that a woman would die or kill for. He wore black sneakers. The boy wore black pants with chains on it and a blue shirt with a red fox on it. His height was about 5'44". Ulquiorra knew it was a boy when he smelled the scent of him and because of the fact that he didn't have a chest. But before he could do anything against this boy, he sensed that a second male was coming at them with incredible speed. It was a boy with a height about 5'64". He had long brown hair that reached his mid-back. He had snow-white eyes. He looked like he was blind. He wore a white cotton shirt and blue jeans. He had white sneakers on. He too looked effeminate but not that extreme like the first boy. Those two were not like the trash like he thought Ichigo and his friends were. No, they screamed of power. It was like it belonged with them and that you should fear them. It was then that he was snapped back to reality and got to hear the last bit of their conversation. "Itado. You know what that means, right? Do I have to tell it to them, Naruto?" The boy now named Naruto was shaking his head. "Do you think we should leave Neji Nai?" The boy now known as Neji tilted his head to the side in question. "Well, it seemed that Ichigo and his friends are busy here. We should." With that they were gone in a flash. Ulquiorra was surprised by the speed they were gone. He knew that Shinigami and they themselves could move faster than the eye. But how had those humans done this? He didn't even saw them move. Yes, it would be a good idea to tell Aizen about this. The faster the better. Maybe they could help them in this war. Yami was by now out cold. The boy, Naruto, had suffocated him nearly with his pressure on his back. He passed out when he didn't got enough air. Ulquiorra saw this mission as failed and left. He opened a Garganta to report this to Aizen. It would be sure interesting to tell him about this. When the Garganta was open he threw Yami in it and then followed. It was to this time that Urahara and Yuruchi arrived. The last thing they saw from Ulquiorra was his back and then nothing. Yuruchi looked around and went to Orihime and Chad. By the time she reached Chad, he was fully healed by Orihime and looked shocked at the place where Naruto had stand just a few minutes ago. Urahara went over to Ichigo and waved a hand in front of his face. Ichigo didn't move. His eyes were slightly widened and his mouth was agape. Urahara did not understand this. He thought that here was a big fight. But what bugged him the most was the way Ichigo acted. He sighed and picked the boy up and threw him over his shoulder. It irked him that Ichigo did not protest to this handling. No kicking, no yelling and no shouting. Nothing. He did nothing. He was limp laying on his shoulder and still seemed to be in shock. But why was he shocked in the first place? It seemed that it had to wait till they reached the Shoten. He gave Yoruichi a sign to go to the Shoten. He would ask them there about this. He looked around and saw the damage done to the area. But it was not a damage like a big fight had its place here. No more like only one-sided fought and the other hadn't had the time to react to this. He narrowed his eyes. This was not good. Especially the way Ichigo acted and his friends. Something was fishy here. But what? It was then that he sensed two other spiritual pressures he did not know of. Whatever must have happened to shock them this much to react like this must be grave. But what could it be? He shook his head. To ask himself all those questions will help him not one bit when he does not have the answer to them. He looked around one last time and then made his way to his Shoten. Something was going on here and he did not know if it was good or bad. But Naruto and Neji were on their way back to their house. Everyone had changed after they had landed here in Karakura town. Neji, Iruka and Sasuke had taken more feminine features on. But they were not that extreme like Naruto's. Naruto had explained it to them that it was his chakra that did it to them. He didn't had the heart to tell them that it was his and Hiro's idea to do so in the beginning. He didn't even told them something other. If he had then they would have known what had happened really to them. Oh well, it's not like he can change it now. Kakashi was the only one who didn't change. Naruto snickered when he thought about the time Neji, Sasuke and Iruka got the chance to look into a mirror. They had fainted because of this. He and Kakashi had a good laugh about it. Naruto still had to train in his demon powers. Although it is now over 5 years ago. Hiro was a bitch when it came to training. Sadistic bastard. Naruto sighed and thought back to the guys he had seen with Ichigo and his friends. They looked strange to him. He even got the feeling that they were not human. He shivered when he thought about the look this guy had given him. Yes, something was not right with them. He looked at Neji and saw him deep thought. So Neji had noticed something too. Maybe he should ask Hiro later about this. It was a 10 minutes walk till they reached their house. They were quiet the whole way there. Each of them lost in thought. Naruto opened the door and went straight for the living room where he found Kakashi and Iruka sound asleep. It was nothing new to him or Sasuke and Neji for that matter. They knew that the two of them were in a relationship. They were even before they had left their home. It was 2 years in their journey through the elemental nations that the two finally confessed their love for each other. It was even in this year that they left too. He sighed when he thought about all their adventures. It had taken 3 whole years for Kakashi, Iruka and Neji to forgive Sasuke. They were now a big dysfunctional family. Iruka and Kakashi were the parents. They even called Iruka mother. He was always in mother hen mode when he saw one of them down, hurt or in pain. Kakashi was the laid-back father. Naruto, Neji and Sasuke the 3 children that always caused more trouble than any good. Sasuke came in the living room when he sensed that Naruto and Neji were back. He threw a glare at Neji. He still hadn't forgive him for the pink hair dye in his shampoo. He had to wear a genjutsu so no one would see it. Hell, he couldn't even wash it out. It is or better said would be in his hair for months till it was back to normal. Alright, whose turn is it to wake them? Asked Neji while sweating when he saw the glare Sasuke gave him. It was not that he was afraid of Sasuke. Hell no. But the boy knew secrets about him that no one should know. Well, maybe Naruto knew more about him, but still. They were not pretty ones you want everyone to hear. And he was an Uchiha. Uchihas were known for their glares. Sasuke shook his head and pointed to Naruto who had a bucket of water already in his hands. Why did it not surprise him that it was always Naruto that woke them up? But wait a moment, where did Naruto get the bucket full of water? He knew that Naruto didn't had it when he looked at him just a few seconds ago. He shook his head. Naruto was full of wonders. Even though they were not always good. When he thought about it they were always bad. Splash, wah. Kakashi and Iruka got in battle mode, but when they noticed a laughing Naruto, heard 2 snickers and their clothes were wet. They knew what had happened. They looked pointedly at Naruto who didn't notice it. Kakashi shook his head while amusement was clear shown in his eye. Kakashi had changed his clothes to comfortable pants and shirt. He didn't have his face mask anymore but wore an eye patch on his left eye to hide the Sharingan. He had a handsome face. Naruto and the others hadn't understood why he wanted to hit it. But they didn't ask him about it. It was something he would tell them when he was ready. Iruka had left them to get some towels for him and Kakashi. Naruto would never change even if the world is coming to an end. When he came back with towels he found them all sitting on the couch or chairs. He raised a brow to that. Something must have happened though that they are all this quiet and sitting in the living room. It was always like this. Every time something happened that was not normal they would be sitting in the living room and discuss about it. So what is it that you have seen? He asked while giving Kakashi a towel who thanked him. Well, began Neji, and Iruka knew already this would be long day. Shoten, Ichigo, Urahara, Yoruichi, Chad, Matsumoto, Renji and Hitsugaya were sitting all in the small meeting room. They had heard the story from Ichigo and how someone from his class was there and had helped them. Hitsugaya looked to be deep in thought when you interpret his scowl right. Matsumoto looked at Ichigo and the others. She looked confused about this. How was it possible to bring someone as this Yami guy down by only standing on him? When she had listened right then, this guy was bigger and stronger than Ichigo. When even Ichigo had admitted that he had needed Bankai to slice his arm of. This story sounded fishy to her. Well, the boy sounded fishy to her and his brother. Renji had a disbelieving look in his face. Someone was stronger than Ichigo, and this someone was a normal human. Now he needed only to define what was normal to him. Urahara and Yuruchi already made plans to get to meet those two. Maybe they could help them in the incoming war against Aizen. Kisuke knew as much already. He sighed and began to play with his fan again. He did it always when he thought or was nervous about something. Or had this feeling in his gut. It helped him with the stress, and his hands had something to do then. He can't even remember when he started this little habit of his. "Kurosaki, didn't you say that this Naruto was going to your school?" asked Hitsugaya after a few seconds of more thinking and silence between them. "Huh? Yeah, what of it?" he asked the white-haired Taichu. "Then it's decided," said Kisuke after he let his fan snap shut. He knew what Hitsugaya was playing at. He smirked about it. Ichigo, Orihime and Chad looked confused on. Even so, you couldn't really tell how Chad looked, but they still knew he was confused. Matsumoto was just as confused as Ichigo, Orihime and Chad. What was now decided? She didn't know but tilted her head to the side. Hitsugaya sighed and rubbed his temple. Why did he got the feeling that he will get a headache when he is finished explaining things to Ichigo? "What is decided? That we are going tomorrow to your school, you moron." Hitsugaya nearly yelled at Ichigo. Stretch this he did. Wako Mundo. Ulquiorra was just entering the meeting room of all Espadas. Everyone was there and Aizen was sitting in his throne thing while Yami had meanwhile come back to the living but was still dazed and did not know where he was. Aizen was sitting there with that creepy grin of his with Jin and Tausen at his side. "Now Ulquiorra, why don't you show us what has happened in the human world?" It wasn't a question, more a demand. Ulquiorra nodded and let his left hand go to his left eye. He took it out and crushed it. It turned to dust that danced through the air in the direction of everyone in the room. They all closed their eyes and began to see the fight in the park of Karakura town. Most of the Espadas in the room frowned at what they had seen. When the show was over, they opened their eyes again. They sneered at Yami for being so easy brought down by a human. "How come that a human could bring you down with only standing on you?" asked Jin with that fox smile of his. "That is not my fault. The fucking brat weighed more than a ton," he exclaimed. "He had suffocated me with only his weight." Murmurs went through all of them. Okay, this brat was not normal. When that was Yami had said was true. Then what the hell is that kid? He sure cannot be a human. If he was able to pin Yami down with only his weight, then there is something not normal with the brat. Aizen's interest was piqued when he saw this. This boy would be a good access for them in the war. He smirked and had already plans formed in his head. He needed the boy and this boy would bring him the victory in this. "But how will I get him to join me? Yes, maybe this should work." Ulquiorra had in the meantime left the room to think about this human. He did not even waited for Aizen to ask him about this new situation or to be dismissed. Everyone was in their own land while this happened. No one had noticed how this insane gleam showed up in Aizen's eyes. Jin and Tausen had left to make sure the Shinigami wouldn't find them yet. It should be surprise for them when the final fight would come. But in reality, Jin and Tausen did what they always did in their free time. Jin made it for himself clear that he had to put everyone here on the edge with his riddle-like speaking. Or just annoy the living hell out of them. Tausen on the other hand wants that everything goes as it is planned. He did not want that something is messed up in the end. He did this after all for the justice and only for it. If only he knew how fucked up it all was with being on Aizen's side. Grimjo on the other hand wanted to fight Ichigo. Maybe even this blonde and blue-haired boy. It would be worth it. Besides, it had been a long time since he had a good fight. It was not like Aizen would notice his missing right. He called upon his Frachian with a wicked grin. Yes, he would have his fun the human world. Time skip next day Ichigo's school. Somehow Urahara had managed it to enroll Matsumoto, Renji and Hitsugaya in Ichigo's school in a matter of hours. Ichigo didn't even notice how he developed a tick mark at his temple and his right eye was twitching so fast that no one saw this. Rukia, who had come back from Soul Society, had seen the new students. She even saw the tick mark and twitch and chose to stay away from Ichigo for the time being. Who knows what he would do to you when you asked him if he was alright. After their sensei had introduced them, the door flew open and Naruto came in the room with his foxy smile. Their sensei sighed irritated and asked Naruto why he was late again. Maybe he would give this time, again, them a good story. He always did. Naruto got that from Kakashi, but his stories were better and most believable. It irked Neji, Iruka and Sasuke to no end that those two were always late. Sasuke was shaking his head. How come that he saw this dope as his brother again? Ah yes, because it was the first time he had someone call him Nai-chan or Aniki. He liked the sound of it. Naruto always said it with so much admiration to him. A secret smile made his way up to his face. Well, you see sensei, he began, and then he told his little adventure. You see, when I woke up I was attacked by flying monkeys. Took me a damn long time to fight them off. After I had finished the last one of them off, I ate my breakfast, which by the way was cold. Then I ran out the door. On my way here I had to help an old lady. Her cat was in a tree high up. And I, always being the one to help others, of course, helped her. When I had finally gotten the cat down. With damn many scratches. Although none are at his person. After that I ran to school. Somehow I landed in the river and had to go back and change my clothes. When I did that I saw that I was late for school. So I ran here. But this time a little girl wanted me to play with her, though I did. And then came the flying monkeys again after me. They wanted their revving. He was stopped. While Naruto had told them his story. Hitsugaya, Matsumoto and Renji studied him. Their first thought was that he was a she. But they knew better from Ichigo's explanation that this Naruto was indeed a boy. It was even affirmed when he began to talk. His voice was deeper than a woman's, and it sounded, or rather was smooth and a bit rough, but still it sounded better than any other man's voice would. Naruto had again his hair in a braid, and Hitsugaya noticed how he could not take his eyes off of him and stared at him. Matsumoto was squealing in the inside and wondered if his hair was as soft as she thought it would be. Renji on the other hand stared openly at him. They were taken out of their trance when their sensei spoke again to them again. That is enough, Uzumaki-san. Please go to your seat. She said. Naruto shrugged and went to his seat with a smile in his face. The class had chuckled here and there through Naruto's story, and even the sensei cracked a smile. No one could be mad at him for a long time. Besides, he told good stories. When Naruto took his seat next to Sasuke's, he had a piece of paper laying there. Naruto already knew from who it was, smiled and opened it. "So flying monkeys, eh?" Naruto smiled at Sasuke's question. "Oh, of course, Nai-chan. Besides, you should place the fault at Kakao too. If it weren't for him maybe I wouldn't always be late," was his answer. The school was normal. Well, as normal as a school could be with Naruto, Neji and Sasuke in their school. Or classes for that matter. It was in the lunch break that Ichigo and the others met at the roof to talk about the yesterday events. It was there decided to talk straight with them when they are alone with Naruto, but they had not count with Sasuke always being there. It was then decided to talk with him even with Sasuke there. Naruto, Sasuke and Neji were outside to talk about the yesterday events. It was Hiro who had told Naruto what those things were and what this person's yesterday were. Hollows, a rancor and Shinigami. It seemed that it gave more than one Shinigami as they had first believed in this new world. New to them at least. So far they had understood it. But what they had not understood was the fact that all of them could see them. Naruto had an idea to that. Naruto was natural to see them. He was a demon, so nothing new there. But because they had come into contact with his Yaki, it had given them this ability to see those hollows, a rancor and Shinigami. It seemed logical to them. Even Neji had to admit that. Naruto had pouted when Neji had said that and sulked for the rest of the day. The others had a good laugh from this. But it had come to end when they thought about it. Everywhere they went they saw those hollows. But even then it were too much to be in one place. It had given them a headache. Something was not right here. Naruto had the feeling something big was going on here. Something that would change everything when the wrong side won. He had shuddered to that thought. Hell, even Hiro did not like this. And Hiro had seen much and gone through worse situations. But this felt just not right to him. Hiro had thought long about this but did not come up with an answer. Maybe they should ask Ichigo. The three of them sensed it when Ichigo and his friends made their over to them. It seemed, after all, that they did not had to ask about this Ichigo. Ichigo, Orihime, Chad, Uryu, Rukia and the three others were also interested in them, it seemed. Maybe they could trade their informations. Naruto smirked when he thought about this. Hiro had rubbed off on him that much was for sure to Neji and Sasuke. They sighed and shook their heads. But Naruto was still their little brother and still the same even when he was too much around Hiro. Ichigo and Ko had now reached Naruto and his brothers. They stared at each other for a long time. Naruto, Sasuke and Neji raised each an eyebrow at the same time. What pretty much freaked their opponents out. Hitsugaya was the first to take a seat on the grass and waited for the others to do the same. When everyone was seated Naruto spoke. "So what does the little berry want?" asked Naruto with a smile while Neji and Sasuke chuckled. Ichigo twitched to that but chose to not say anything at all. They needed this information right now. And even if it kills him he can't say a thing to Naruto this time. He settled with a sigh and stared at Naruto and Neji. "How were you able to see me yesterday?" Naruto and Neji settled for playing the dumb ones. They would not blow their cover. Even so they knew already about him being a Shinigami and that his friends were in the same boat as him. It would only lead to misunderstandings. It was something they did not need right now. "No, not at all." "What do you mean?" "Of course we could see you. After all, it was not that someone couldn't see you, right?" said Naruto with his head tilted to side like a confused puppy. Neji held his laughter in and nodded to what Naruto said. Really, it wasn't like no one was able to see him. Neji was smirking in the inside. Oh, how fun it was to play with them. Now he knew why Naruto likes it to play pranks. Now came the hardest part. It all depended on Ichigo and the others to play it right. If Neji hadn't knew it better, he really would have thought that Naruto was innocent and not playing it. The boy was a genius when it came to be an actor. Although he and Sasuke weren't not that bad either, but Naruto was still the best in it. He could have a great career as one. Ichigo, Orihime Chad, Ishida, Rukia, Matsumoto, Hitsugaya and Renji looked at each other. What now? With that they had not counted. They had thought that those two would ask questions like Orihime and Chad done. But now? What to do? Tell them everything or just leave? Matsumoto was the one who took the decision from them. She looked at Naruto and stared into his eyes. It was then that she squealed and glumped him. The others' sweat dropped and Neji and Sasuke acted like it was a normal thing to them. Which it was. Everywhere they went Naruto was glumped by females. Though it was nothing new to them. Hell, some even tried to kidnap him from them. Naruto blinked a few times and chuckled that soon turned into a full-out blown laughter. Rukia, Chad, Ishida, Renji, Hitsugaya, Orihime and Ichigo stared at him like he had grown a second head. Which wouldn't be new to them due to the hollows with more heads they had seen. Matsumoto somehow got her control over her body back and had to ask him the first thing that came to her mind. Can I keep you? Naruto's laughter was now harder and even Neji and Sasuke joined in. It was then that Hitsugaya decided that his Fukatechu had completely lost it and would never get it back. He was sure about it. He had noticed it the first time he had met her. But now it only enforced his suspicions of her losing it. Naruto on the other hand found it funny. It was clearly shown. Matsumoto was the first to ever ask him that question. Sorry, at Naruto's questioning look she introduced herself and the other three. I'm Ranjiku. Matsumoto Ranjiku. That boy with the red hair is Aburai Renji and the white-haired one is Tohiro Hitsugaya. She said with a smile. Nice to meet you, Mina. I am Uzumaki Naruto and that over there are my brothers Uchiha Sasuke and Hyuga Neji. At the confused looks he got he explained it to them. Well, we are not brother by blood. They nodded in understanding. Matsumoto pouted. She still hasn't gotten her answer to her question. Naruto saw her pouting and laughed again. He knew he had forgotten something. Sorry Matsumoto. But you can't keep me. I do not think that my brothers would like that. As if on cue they both glared at her. Nodding in understanding and pouting a bit she let go of him. She took her place next to Hitsugaya and waited for the others to finally ask the question. Knowing that this would not happen soon. Rukia took over and asked them to wait for them after school at the gate. They wanted to show them something and then ask them a few questions about yesterday. Not that Naruto, Neji and Sasuke knew about this. It went better than Neji had first thought it would and soon left to go to his classes. Damn it that he was a year older than them. He could not be together with them, but it still gave their free time. Naruto and Sasuke soon left after him. School did not pass by fast enough for Ichigo and Co. It took too long for their liking. They wanted it to be over though they could ask Naruto and his brothers those questions and get their answers from them. And in the end they could still manipulate their memories to their likes. Naruto and Sasuke on the other hand were writing to each other and asked themselves question at how this little meeting would go. Naruto nearly laughed out loud when he thought of an answer to one of Sasuke's question. Hell, it was just too hilarious. He even imagined Neji's reaction to this question. If he would find out that Sasuke wrote this. Said boy would be dead then. I sense blackmail material. He grinned to that. School was finally over and Ichigo and his friends were waiting at the gate for the three brothers. A few seconds later Naruto, Neji and Sasuke made their way over to them. When everyone was there they made their way to Urahara Shoten. It was a dead silence while they walked. If you ignored Matsumoto's chatting with Naruto and her glumping him from time to time, Neji and Sasuke shared looks with each other and even talked with Matsumoto. The four were the only ones to talk while they walked. The others were too deep in thought about the yesterday events and how it was possible for them to see Ichigo in his Shinigami form. Sure, they knew that Chad and Orihime couldn't see Ichigo too for the first time. But it changed after they were too much around Ichigo and his Ryatsu. They knew it helped them, but how was it possible for them to see him? They were only 1 or 2 weeks here. They are not even friends with Ichigo though, how was it possible for them to see him? Hitsugaya had even spoken with Soul Society about this. It was decided to get them to join them in their fight. When one of them was able to beat in a rank or whatever they are. When he didn't even try to, then what could he do when he tried to? It would be too bad when Aizen got his hands on them then. They would surely lose then. Soul Society knew that those rankers are bad news. They had a feeling that they were something new for Aizen in this war. They knew they would need any help in this war. But how to get them to join them? That was the big question now. Surely they would not just accept it when they asked them. So what to do then? The group had reached Urahara's place and just went in. Naruto, Neji and Sasuke were giving each other strange looks. Why had Ichigo and his friends brought them here? Surely they did not want them to buy something in here. Naruto just shrugged and went into the shop. Neji and Sasuke caught on his heels. They followed them to a room that was really small, but somehow got them all in. In there they saw a person with a green and white stripes on a hat and a fan in front of his face. Naruto knew he was smiling behind the fan. His eyes said it all. Besides, he was good at reading humans and their emotion. He knew how to hid them. Even when he was still a little kid, it was then that he saw a black cat sitting next to the person. He raised a brow but then shrugged and took a seat. He had seen stranger things. Neji and Sasuke took each a seat at his side. And they say they are not overprotective. They were looking at each other and Ichigo broke the silence. Everyone in the room took a turn to ask a question. They did not try to keep it a secret. They needed answers and they needed them now. Aizen was just too dangerous for them. If he could get his fingers on them, they would surely lose the oncoming war. Naruto was bemused to say the least. He and Hiro talked about the way the Shinigami talked to them and asked them questions. Sure, they asked their own, but did never let their cover blow up. Neji and Sasuke were smirking in the inside. It had been a long time since they had a good fight. Maybe this was their chance. It all depended how it went from here. Are you sure I can't keep you? Asked Matsumoto Naruto again. I am sure. He said with a snicker. But let us stop with the playing and get to real reason why we are here. I know you want to know what I am. He said in a serious voice. Neji and Sasuke had immediately an emotionless mask on like Naruto. Their faces showed nothing. They were trained for this and would get the information like they needed them. Even if they had to use force against them. The playing stopped and everyone had a serious expression in their faces. Even though Orihime still looked confused. She did not understand the sudden change of the mood in the room. We know already what you are and what hollows are. Thanks to your detailed explanations. We even know that something big is going. Something that I do not like. We want to know what it is. We will even help if you should need our help in this. Yes, what Naruto said is true, we know about it all. Even before you told us. But the information was not enough and did not help us at all. But it seemed that you will need our help in the near future. Said Neji to them. Then please tell who you are and why is that you know already about us. Asked Urahara. His fan long forgotten laying next to him. Naruto sighed, he knew that this question would come. He glanced at Neji and Sasuke who looked at him. He nodded and they nodded back. He had not thought that he would have to tell them their story this soon. He knew he had to if he wanted to gain their trust. But that he had to tell them their story this soon. He would have never thought. Hiro was sure that this question could have taken a bit longer to be asked. But it was now too late and it was questioned now. Hiro sighed and hoped Naruto would make it through it. He past was a touchy subject to him after all. Did I know how hard this is on you? But it is better said now than later. Besides, you want them to trust you, do you not? Asked him Hiro with a soothing voice. Oh, of course Hiro, he sighed mentally. Now where to begin? He asked himself out loud. But then sighed and chose to begin with the Kyuubi attack before everything was too confusing to understand. Well, where we come from, a giant kitsune yokai had attacked our village. He was known to us as the Kyuubi no Yako, the powerfulest one of the 9 bijus. He had attacked our village without any reasons at all. Well, reasons we did not know of. Our current Hokage, at that time, had sealed the Kyuubi in a newborn child that day. It was well known to us that no one had the strength to beat a powerful beast such as him. Though he decided to seal him into me. Naruto took a shuddering breath. He remembered his childhood again. Sasuke and Neji, sensing what was wrong, took him in a hug to soothe him. It took a few minutes to calm him down. Matsumoto looked astounded at him. While the others had widened eyes. It was something that they had never heard of. I am okay now, guys. He said with a weak smile to them. Our Hokage summoned the Shinigami that helped him to seal the Kyuubi inside of me. But a price had to be paid back for doing such. He had to pay with his life. You said Shinigami. But why is that no one of us was summoned then? Asked Hitsugaya. That is because we are not from this world. Said Sasuke. Everything will be explained when we tell you our stories. And how we came here. Chapter 3. The Past Eye. Flashback. Naruto. It was October the 10th. The birth of the Yondaime Hokage's son. But also the day the Kyuubi no Yako attacked Konohagakure no Sado. Minato knew that he could not kill the great beast, but had another idea. He had to seal the beast. And in his own son no less. He looked sadly at his son. He knew that his last wish for his son will never be granted, but he could at least try. Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto's mother, had just died in childbirth. He knew his son would be a great shinobi and that he will not be there for him. See him grow up, how he makes his first attempt to walk, hear his first word, see him go to the academy and so much more. He regretted this decision already, but he had to. It was for the safety of the village. A lone tear made its way down his cheek. When he cannot give his own flesh and blood away. How can he then ask someone other and ask for theirs? He looked at his son with sorrow and tears in his eyes. Little Naruto was sleeping peacefully in his arms. He looked like an angel to him and like him. A mini-me of him. A copy most would say. A smile made its way on his face. It was then that Minato heard the Kyuubis roar through the whole village. The smile dropped immediately. It was time to fight and protect his village. He sighed and with a heavy heart summoned his boss summon, Gabamonta. "Why did you summon me, Gaki?" asked him Gabamonta with the pipe in his mouth. "I need you for the last time, Gabamonta. I need you to bring me as close as you can to the Kyuubi. So planning to use it, huh? I see that I can't change your mind. Well, it was great fighting at your side." Gabamonta nodded after he gave his mind and saw what Minato had in his arms. He knew then what Minato had meant and had planned. It would do nothing. Whatever he said, the blonde would not change his mind. He made his way to the battlefield without a word to this idea Minato had planned. He was just too stubborn to change his mind. When Minato arrived at the battlefield, the exhausted shinobi saw new hope to win this battle. But in the end they would lose the greatest leader this village had in all its years. Minato began to do the hand seals for his last jutsu. Meanwhile Gabamonta held the Kyuubi firmly in its place. Shikinfuji was hurt and then there was a blinding light. The shinobis had to close their eyes because the light was too bright. While they closed their eyes they could hear the angered cry of the Kyuubi. It was roaring with fury when it noticed what the flesh bag had done to it. It tried to flee, but every attempt was destroyed. It could not move. It was just standing there. Something was holding it at his place and made sure it was not moving. It let out a cry of fury. Minato was smirking all the while. It seemed that the Kyuubi had still not noticed the Shinigami standing behind him. It was then that Minato felt how something was putting its arm through him. This was a feeling he did not want to feel ever again. It was a feeling of dread. Something that promised death. He shivered but let his gaze drift to his son. His son that he will never see growing up. Tears gathered in his eyes. But he pushed them back and focused again at the Kyuubi that finally noticed what was going on. The Kyuubi saw now what was behind the flesh bag in front of him and let out an angry roar. But before it could do anything it felt a hand going through its skull and taking a hold on its soul. And before it could roar again it lost its soul, which was going directly to the infant that it noticed now. It finally hit the Kyuubi what was going on. It was being sealed into the little flesh bag. But then it smelled it. That little flesh bag had the same scent like the bigger flesh bag. It meant one thing to him. That bigger flesh bag was the father of the little one. It smirked at this. Maybe it could get revenge on the little flesh bag for this. With one last angry roar it vanished inside the infant. The second the Kyuubi was sealed inside little Naruto, Minato fell over. The Shinigami had taken his soul and left the battlefield. It had its deed done. There was nothing else it had to do now. The shinobis could finally open their eyes again. But what they saw let their blood ran cold. Directly in front of them was their Hokage. He was laying on the ground and not moving. He was pale as a sheet. It was then they heard a baby's cry. It was coming from their now dead Hokage. One of them went over to the dead body of their leader to see what it was. When the shinobi was now next to their Hokage, he found an infant that couldn't be older than an hour or two. It was then that the third Hokage came to the battlefield. He was in a flash next to the infant and his face was then struck with horror. No, it could not be it. No way in hell had Minato done this, it could not be true. He would never ever in his entire life seal the Kyuubi inside his own son. But it was then Sarutobi saw the infant. The truth sank in. He knew it was then true. The baby was a split image of his father. There was no denying it anymore. Minato had indeed done what he thought he did. He had sealed the Kyuubi no Yako inside his own flesh and blood. His own legacy at that. His son. Sarutobi sighed and picked up the infant. It was time to face the council with this. He knew it would be a hard time for the little Naruto here. It was sad. He knew that he would regret what he is going to do about this whole situation. He went up to the council room. It was time to face the devils. Council room, you can't do that. Roared a furious Sarutobi at the council. Yes we can, and that is final, the meeting is ended. With that every council member left the room. Sarutobi slumped down in his chair. It could not be true. How can they be so dense about this? Have they really this much distrust in the Yondaime? No faith in him and his sealing abilities? Sarutobi could cry about this whole situation. It was just not fair. Naruto hadn't deserved this kind fate in life. Sarutobi knew that much. He looked sadly at Naruto who was laying wide awake in his crib. He had taken Naruto immediately to the council to talk about this. But it seemed that the council was narrow-minded about this. The tears flow now freely. Naruto would have the hardest life you could imagine. Sarutobi cursed the council for this. How could they do something like this to a child that didn't have a say in this matter? Why was it that he had to have it? It was no use asking himself such questions. He would never get answer to them. Naruto had to live in the orphanage now. Everyone in the council wanted Naruto to be dead. But Sarutobi had made sure he was not to die. But the council had forbidden him to adopt Naruto and help him in any matters. They wanted to make sure Naruto suffered in his life. Even the clans were with this decision. It was clear that Naruto was not allowed to have a happy life. The only thing Sarutobi could do was to forbid the elder generation to tell their children about Naruto's condition. He wanted Naruto to have friends. But he highly doubt he would have any at all. How the council had forced him to tell the citizen about Naruto and the Kyuubi being sealed inside him. Naruto's life was damned from this time on. The only one on his side was Kakashi. Kakashi had volunteered to him to look after Naruto and make sure he was safe. He knew what the villagers would do the moment Naruto was alone. They would try to kill him and take their revenge on him for their loss. He could not even tell that he was the Yondame's son. The other clans that were enemies with the Yondame would want him dead then. And if I would heard of this. He didn't want to think about it. He sighed and hoped that Minato and Kushina would forgive him for this. But he knew that it was wishful thinking. He could only hope that Naruto would never held a grudge against him for this. Unknown to him was that the Kyuubi was listening to all of this. It did not like what it had heard. But it could do not at this time. It could only hope that its jailer would free it, though it can wreak havoc on them all again and finish its job. Time skip 5 years. Streets of Konoha in an unknown alley. The 5-year-old child was laying in an alley. It was covered from head to toe in bruises, mud, blood, shards, kunes, shuriken, senbons and other weapons. Its normally unruly golden blonde hair was matted against its head. The once golden blonde hair was now a dull brown from the mud with streaks of red through it from its own blood. The child lay motionless on the floor while the villagers around it continued to beat it. The once white shirt was ripped off of it and was carelessly thrown away. The villagers laughed at the child. It was then someone said something that would change the child and its life forever. "Hey guys. Why don't we have some fun with a little demon spawn?" His answer to that was cruel laughter from his friends. The demon spawn's eyes widened when he heard that. Even though he was only 5 years old. He knew what the man with fun meant. He tried to struggle himself free. But to no use. He couldn't get free. It was then that one of them ripped his already torn pants off of him with his boxers. They were carelessly thrown away. Why should they care where they landed? It was not like they would need them for the next few hours. And after them. It was not like the boy would live through this night anyway. Naruto didn't know what was happening. One moment he had his boxers on and the next they were gone. He was now laying naked in the alley at the mercy of those people. Before Naruto knew what was happening to him, one of them entered him with a hard thrust. He screamed in pain and trashed widely around him. But it was no use. It didn't stop the male above him. He just moved without letting Naruto adjust to the size. He could hear their laughter. It sounded so cruel to him. He didn't even notice how they cut and beat him while they raped him. When the first was satisfied with himself, he took a kunai and shoved up Naruto's ass. Naruto cried out in pain and the men snickered at his pain. They enjoyed to see him like this. It was Christmas to them. But it was far from over for him. It was only the beginning. While they used the kunai on his ass, someone shoved his erected cock down his throat. Naruto's cries of pain were unheard and swallowed now. No one would hear his pleas to end this now. Not like they would have helped in the first place. When the kunai left him, another rammed his cock into him. They moved with hard thrusts into him. They felt joy when they saw his tears and heard his cries of pain. Naruto felt like he was burning inside. It was just too much for him. He had never felt this much pain in his whole short life. He knew the villagers hated him. But that was the first time they did something like that to him. He cried silent tears and whimpered. His throat was hoarse and hurt from screaming so much. He couldn't use it anymore. He knew it was far from over when the third of them took his turn on him. He wished he was never born in this moment. He didn't even know what he had done to deserve this. That was pure torture on the little soul. Naruto didn't even know what he had done wrong to deserve this kind of treatment. But luck should be on his side this time. Even if it came too late. This time the villagers would get their punishment for doing this to him. Not that it would ever help him. He fell into the bliss of unconscious. "What the hell is going on here?" someone shouted. The men immediately stopped. They heard a gasp, "Oh my god, Naruto." A few moments before, Kakashi Haddock was on his way home from a mission. But first he had to stop by his favorite little blonde. He smiled underneath his mask. The little blonde could always make him smile. He hoped that Naruto stayed in his apartment like he had told him to. He knew of the hate of the villagers. He knew what they would do to him when he was out today. But his hope was crushed when he reached Naruto's apartment. The apartment was empty. The door was out of its hinges and the living area was destroyed. Kakashi didn't know what to do in this moment. All of his training went out of the window when he saw this. He had forgotten that he was a ninja. He was like a civilian right now. He didn't know what to do in this moment. He panicked and ran out of the destroyed apartment. He ran through the streets in search of the little blonde. It was only a few minutes later when he ran in an alley that he found Naruto. He was shocked at what he saw. That was far more worse than he had expected them to do. That was just disgusting to him. It was then that his reasoning thinking kicked in and his anger took over. "What the hell is going on here?" he shouted at them. But he gasped when he saw in which condition Naruto was in. It was far more worse than he had thought when he first saw him. But now that he had a good look at him. Oh my god, Naruto. He didn't even give a second glance at the villagers. He rushed to Naruto and threw the men off of him. He cursed under his breath when he got a good look at Naruto's body. Naruto was coated in his own blood and dried semen were over his body. Wait till Hokage-sama hears about this. He said to them with venom. The brat had it coming. Someone foolish shouted at him. Yeah, he is a demon. He deserved this. Agreed someone. Yeah, Hokage-sama will thank us. Shouted another one. Kakashi only glared at them and left. It was no use. They would never understand it. They were narrow-minded and idiots. Kakashi sighed and made his way over to the hospital. Naruto needed medical attention right now. He did not know what could happen if he got it not. It was already hard on him to have lost his second family. He could not lose his sensei's son too. When he reached the hospital he ran straight for the only doctor that would treat Naruto right. It was no wonder. The same doctor had helped with the delivery of Naruto 5 years ago. It was an old friend of Minato and Kushina. He only hoped that he was there. Jean did not know what would happen to him today. But he had a bad feeling since he woke up this day. He didn't know when this bad thing would happen. But he knew what it was when he saw Kakashi burst through the doors of the hospital and nearly ran him over in the process. He did not found it funny and wanted to scream at the scarecrow when he noticed that they had something in his arms. No, not a something, more of a someone. Oh my Kami-sama. What happened to him? He said in a whisper when he saw it was Naruto and in which condition he was in. Which day is today? Kakashi nearly snapped at him. It's the Jean stopped, his eyes widened and immediately knew what Kakashi meant. Quick, follow me. Kakashi did as he was told. He just followed his friend and hoped he could help. After finally reaching a room where Jean could look after Naruto, Kakashi let out a sigh of relief. It felt like hours to him, but it were only a few minutes. Jean particular threw the doors open. They banged against the walls and Kakashi cringed to the sound. It hurt his ears. Damn him for the contact with the dogs. They had to just give him exchange senses, hadn't they? And he had to just freaking agree to this, damn him to hell. Out Kakashi. I hope you told the Hokage-sama about this. When he saw Kakashi's reaction. He knew he didn't. He sighed loudly at that. Do it now, Kakashi. Kakashi only nodded and laid Naruto down on the white bed. He left via Shunshin and found himself seconds later in the Hokage office. Sarutobi Hiruzen was a busy man. A man that had to fight each day a dreaded and powerful enemy each cage feared. Paperwork. It was really simple to them. The stacks grew and grew but never got lesser. However long you worked on them, it seemed that they just did not want it to shrink. He knew that it was mocking him. The way it was sitting oh so innocently on his desk and was doing nothing. He knew that this will be someday his death. He just knew it. It was then that Kakashi came into existence in his office. Well, he used Shunshin no Jutsu. But that was not important now. What important was to him was the simple fact that Kakashi was covered in blood. And with the looks of it, it was not even his own blood. So whose blood was it? Sarutobi knew that Kakashi would never with blood-coated clothes come into his office or in the village. He hated to be coated in the blood of his enemies. So it had to be urgent when he did not changed. Or someone had been attacked in the village. But which one was it? The question was answered the second Kakashi opened his mouth to speak to him. It's Naruto. Was the only thing needed to be said. What about him? Asked the old Hokage with all the color draining from his face. He had a pretty much good idea where this was heading. Please Kakashi, don't tell me that this blood is his. Please. Kakashi only nodded at him. The Hokage was now white as a sheet. Maybe even whiter than that. If that is even possible. It could not be true. Not the boy that was like a grandson to him. The boy that always made his day brighter. Tell me what happened, Kakashi. He demanded to know. I was on my way home from the mission, Hokage-sama. He said in a business voice. I wanted to check on Naruto like I always do. When I reached his apartment. It was destroyed beyond repairable. Naruto was not in it though. I assumed something must have happened to him. I ran outside the apartment complex and searched for him. I found him in an alley while the villagers surrounded him in a circle. He took a deep shuddering breath and closed his visible eye. The next part was the worst to come for him. Naruto was in the middle of them all. He was naked and had blood, semen and bruises everywhere. They were raping him. I did not punish them, instead I ran straight to the hospital though that Naruto's wounds were taken care of. I came here after this. He ended the worst report he had to make in his whole career as shinobi. The old man's gaze hardened when he heard that Naruto was raped by them. They would get a punishment that comes to them. But first he needed Kakashi and a few Anbus to take care of them. Ibiki should have his fun with them. Kakashi, I want you and a team of 5 Anbus to go after them. I want them in the interrogation by Ibiki and Anko ASAP. That is your new mission. A-class. Dismissed. He saw how Kakashi left and then took of himself. He had a hospital to be at. With Naruto woke up to find himself in a sewer. He was confused. He knew that he passed out in an alley and not in a sewer. Though how came he here? Maybe the villagers had left him here for good. No, the old man would never let something like this happen to him. He knew this and frowned. It was then that he noticed that he was standing in water. It was waist deep. Where came it from? It was then that he saw tunnels here and some blue pipes were on the wall. But they were not as interesting as the tunnels. Something was written over them. On one stood nightmares, another one had hobbies, then there was dreams. And then he came to a tunnel where stood nothing. He cocked his head to the side. It confused him to no end. On all tunnels was standing something. But not on this one. Why? He saw then that a red mist was coming out of it. The mist seemed as it wanted him to follow it. He slowly made his way over to it. He was standing in front of it now. The mist reached out to him and Naruto giggled. It tickled him. His giggling turned into laughter soon when the mist didn't stop. Naruto was soon out of breath and sitting on the water. How that was possible he didn't know. But it did confused him that he did not get wet when sitting on or standing in it. The mist began to shrink back and Naruto gasped. He did not want to be alone here. He was afraid of this place. He did not know if a villager would come out of nowhere and attack him. This mist was his only friend so far. Even if it is just mist. It was better than to have no one as a friend. He began to hiccup slightly and his eyes watered. He did not want his new friend to leave him. He saw then that the mist stopped and seemed to be waiting for him. He grinned slightly and began to stand up. His hiccups became lesser and lesser and his eyes somewhat dried. He went after the mist which began to move again. Naruto went after the mist giggling. He chased after it and giggled when it seemed that the mist was scolding him with a finger. It all too soon ended when he reached an open room. The room was big in Naruto's opinion. Well, he was only 5 years old. For him was everything is big that is bigger than him. So yes, it is big. Naruto saw a giant golden cage standing on front of him. He was curious and went in front of. It was then that he saw the crumbled and yellow paper with a kanji for seal on it. He tilted his head to the side like a lost puppy. Why would something like this be on a cage? He did not notice how someone was watching him. That someone had red eyes that were outlined black and gave them a scarier look. They were from head to toe covered in blood-red fur. Their ears looked more like the ones of a bunny than of a fox. It happened quite often that this someone was made fun of them because of the way they look. But those who did would regret it only later when they had to face him. After all, this being was not without a good reason feared by all. It was feared by yokai and ninjas alike. They had the power to destroy them after all when they were in the mood. But now something had sparked their interest. Kyuubi no Yako was pissed. No, pissed was an understatement. The fox was beyond pissed. No one was allowed to hurt something that was his and get away with it. No one. Not even some ninjas that think they have the right to do so. Even so, the thing that belonged to him was its jailer. Kyuubi was furious. If he was not in this damn cage he would make them pay. But first he had to take care of the little flesh bag. He knew that it was frightened because of what the villagers had done to him. Not that he could blame him. He knew that humans were disgusting, but even that was something not even he would do. It was beneath him. He was a king and as such he would never lower himself to such things. Oh, flesh bag. Rumbled the fox's deep and rough voice through the sewer. Kyuubi inwardly cringed. That was not how he wanted his voice to sound like. He did not want to make the little flesh bag fear him. Only if it is for this time. But it seemed that after having to use always this kind of tone, it had become a second nature to him. Naruto was startled when he heard the voice. He looked around the room and then saw it. Behind the golden cage was a giant kitsune. It had blood-red fur and bunny ears. If Naruto weren't such afraid this moment he would laugh because of that. But what startled him the most were the eyes of the giant beast. They were in a darker shade of red than the beast's fur. They were outlined black and gave the beast a malice look. Naruto shuddered subconscious. He took a step back and then fell. The giant beast just watched him and then sighed. The tail reached out to him and wrapped itself around him. It surprised him how warm the tail was. He noticed how the tail brought him nearer to the beast. He panicked and began to trash widely. It reminded him of what the villagers had just done to him before he woke up here. The beast, sensing its jailer distress, stopped moving its tail and began to purr. He did not wanted the boy to fear him for no reason. Not now at the moment. Later in his life maybe when he knows who he really is. But not now. The little flesh bag needed comfort right now. Naruto stopped his trashing when he heard the rumbling coming from the beast. He was confused now. Is the beast trying to comfort him with purring? It seemed so. The tail began moving again when the beast saw how the fear vanished in Naruto's eyes. The beast brought him into the cage with its tails. The tail brought him in directly front of the beast's chest. It was then that Naruto saw the 9 tails behind the beast. He looked odd at them and followed their swishing from side to side. It made him feel dizzy, though he stopped after the first 15 minutes and shook his head. The fox watched Naruto with amusement clearly shown in its deep blood-red eyes. Naruto jerked his head to the beast when he heard its chuckle, and it was shaking him through. That was what he got for being seated at its chest. "Little kid, do not be afraid of me. I am not like those villagers." It said the last part with a sneer. It would made the villagers pay for doing this to the little child. Naruto tilted his head to side and stared at the beast with wide eyes. How did it know about the villagers doing this mean things to him? Not even the old man Hokage knew about this or Kakashi. Well, maybe Kakashi did knew about it. But he did know that the old man Hokage did not. Though how did this beast knew? How? Iubi sighed and nuzzled the little flesh bag. No, it would not tell him right now how he knew it. It would wait till the little ninja was older and would understand it. Besides, he would not remember any of this when he awakes later. It would seal this memory away. But he knew that the villagers would do this again to him. He will only seal their meeting then away. He sighed again and licked the little flesh bag's face, successfully distracting him from the current topic. He let a smirk settle on his face for this little moment. Naruto was giggling like a lunatic because of this. He used his tails and let them swish back and fro in front of Naruto's face. The little chibi tried to grab after them with his little chubby hands. Naruto giggled when the tails moved out of his way when he tried to reach for them. It was fun for him. He yawned when he again tried to reach for one. It was then that he realized how tired he really was. He began to snuggle into the giant fox who watched him quietly. His eyes slowly dropped shut and he was asleep. The fox used its tails as a blanket for the little flesh bag. He let his head lay down next to Naruto and watched the child. It would not take long till he woke up in the real world again. Maybe then the good-for-nothing Hokage will be there then. The fox knew that the silver-haired male tried everything to help Naruto. From clothes to food and learning reading and writing. He helped where he could. He had nothing against this male. He was the father the little flesh bag needed and never had because of him. But it was not his fault. It was all that damned Ichigo's fault. He had to attack his den when he at least thought of it. He had to trap him in a jinjutsu powerful enough that could even fool him, the king of Bijouas. He will not only make the villagers pay, but this damned Ichigo too. He will have his revenge against them. But first came Naruto. Even so, he hated the flesh bag's father. He could not hate the little flesh bag. Sure, he was a mini-me of that son of a bitch. But it was not his fault that he was sealed inside of him. Back in the hospital, Sarutobi was in worry for his surrogate grandson. He was still in surgery. And already 3 hours had gone by. Kakashi was standing next to him. He had come back after delivering the villagers to Anko and Ibiki. Kakashi was a rack. He stood there and did not read his smut. He had a blank expression in his face. He hoped that Jean would open those damn doors already. Sarutobi had began to chew on his pipe in worry of Naruto. It was then that he noticed a wooden flavor in his mouth. He took his pipe out and saw the teeth print in it. And that a good chunk was missing from it. He sighed and stuck his tongue out. Sure enough. There lay a piece of his pipe on his tongue innocently. Kakashi saw what the old Hokage did and stifled a laugh when he saw the face of said man and the piece of wood on the tongue. The Hokage looked pointy at Kakashi when he saw how the younger male wanted to laugh. But it did not help him that he still had his tongue out with the piece of wood on it. It was then that Kakashi laughed. It was just too hilarious to look at. The old Hokage trying to be stern and scold with his tongue stuck and a piece of wood on it did not help in this matter. Omen Hokage-sama. He gasped and tried to catch his breath. But it is just too funny when someone looks at you with their tongue stuck out and a piece of wood on it. Especially when they try to scold you and be stern. Ahas Hadib was the answer. Kakashi's laughter doubled then. It was just too much for him. He knew he should not be laughing in a situation like this. But the old man was just too damn funny when he tried to scold you with his tongue still out and the piece of wood on it trying to speak. The situation was asking for this. It was just too much for him. The Sandaime on the other did not like it, but it was his own fault for trying to be stern and then speak. Everyone would laugh at him then. Even his enemies and his subordinates. He was just lucky it was only Kakashi here to see him like this. It sure would damage his reputation if someone other would see this. It was to this sight that Jean opened the doors and laughed when he saw the Sandaime with the piece of wood on his tongue. He knew he should not laugh after what Naruto went through, but he had to. It was just too hilarious. He saw the look the Hokage gave him and laughed harder. Maybe you should get rid of the piece of wood and stop sticking your tongue out, Hokage-sama. He said when he knew he could talk again. Kakashi giggled a bit and then regained his footing. He looked Jean directly in the eyes. He wanted to know how his son is. His worry was shown clearly in his only visible eye. How is he? The Hokage had meanwhile got his tongue again into his mouth and got rid of the piece of wood. He looked at Jean and waited of the answer. He wanted to hear it too. It was something he did not want it to miss. Jean made a gesture to follow him into the room Naruto was in. They saw Naruto laying on the white bed. He had bandages around his whole body. Only his face was free from them. The villagers had done a number on him. Jean mentioned for them to take a seat on the bed on Naruto's left side. This would be hard to explain to them. He still could not believe what had happened to Naruto. He took a chair and seated himself in front of them. He took a deep breath and began to explain. You see, when Kakashi brought Naruto in, he was in a bad condition. But I did not know that it was such a bad condition. Naruto had his left arm dislocated. His right arm had his muscles torn and his hands were broken. All his ribs, save for 2, were broken. 3 were piercing his lungs. The others were broken in such a way they pierced his other organs. His liver and kidneys were damaged the most, but not as bad as I first thought. He took a deep breath and let the information sink in. Naruto had burns from 3rd to 5th degree on his body. The worst were on his back. His anal was hurt badly. It seemed they had forced themselves at him. But the worst part is that I found punctures of a kunai. It seemed that they shoved it up his ass. He stopped again and sighed. He saw their looks of horror. But he was far from finished. I am not finished. There is more. He took a deep breath. He bit his lip. It was hard to say the next part about this. He knew Naruto would never be the same anymore. Not after what the villagers had done to him. It would be a surprise if he still wanted to protect the village and its inhabitants. He knew Kushina and Minato must be disappointed in them. The village they loved and protected had done such gruesome things to their son. Naruto had semen in his mouth too. They were not only abusing him anal, but oral too. Naruto's legs are both broken and will be no use for him. For at least 3 months. The Hokage and Kakashi could not believe what they had heard. How could they do something like this to an innocent child? Kakashi looked at Naruto and shook his head. Those fools. Could they not see the difference between an innocent child and a bloodthirsty demon? Naruto was just a child. If he were the demon, then he would have finished the job already he started 5 years ago. Those idiots. If Minato-sensei were still alive, he would grill them. Jean looked at the sleeping form of Naruto and tears were running down his face. He had been so strong through the surgery and examination. Naruto's body was, for the lack of a better word, trash. It was a surprise to him that he was still alive. But it had something to with the Kyuubi that he was still alive. If it weren't for the fox, Naruto would surely be dead. Jean shook his head. He should not be thinking such thoughts. He was happy that Naruto was still alive. That was all that mattered to him right now. The hard part would be to explain to Naruto what had happened to him when he asked why he was in the hospital. Kakashi looked at Naruto's still figure and cursed the villagers for their stupidity. How hard could it be to see that he was not the demon, but an innocent child that had no choice in this matter? He mildly asked himself if they would do this to their own child if it had not been Naruto on that day. He, like everyone in the village, had lost loved ones when the Kyuubi attacked, but he would never hold it against Naruto. The boy had not asked for this. He was only a few hours old to that time. But it seemed that the villagers could not see that fact and ignored in favor for revenge. Sarutobi sighed heavily when he heard the medical report from Naruto. He knew that Naruto did not told him everything about the villagers. But Kakashi did. He knew that Naruto saw Kakashi as a father figure and would tell him everything. He sighed again and closed his eyes. The council must be laughing their asses off right now. They must be having fun. It was after all what they wanted to happen to Naruto. It was times like this that he felt so much older than he really was. He opened his eyes again and looked at Kakashi. He knew how the younger man must be feeling right now. He knew that Kakashi and Naruto were like father and son. To hear something like this happening to your child. He shook his head. He had a council meeting to plan. This time he will give them a piece of his mind. He knew it would change nothing. But he could try. Jean laid a hand on Kakashi's shoulder. He knew his friend needed comfort now. Not only Naruto did. It is after all not every day that your child gets raped from the villagers. Kakashi looked at Jean and closed his eye. He was glad that he was here and gave him comfort in this moment. He knew that he would need all of his nerves when Naruto woke up. The boy would need him. He took a shuddering breath and made his way next to Naruto. He dragged the chair, which Jean had been using, over the floor till it came to a stop next to Naruto's bed. He took a seat on it and stroked Naruto's hair. This was a hard time for him. Jean watched Kakashi and left quietly the room. He knew Kakashi would call for him if he needed him. Outside the room he sighed tiredly and looked at the ceiling with tears in his eyes. Now he knew why this day would be a bad day for him. But not only for him but for Kakashi, Naruto and the Hokage too. He sighed again, shook his head and made his way home. It was a long day for him. He could only imagine how Kakashi must feel. When he was already exhausted from seeing Kakashi's reaction. How must the poor man then feel? Council room. Sarutobi Hiruzen was a generous man. Most would say he is too kind to harm a fly in his current age and should name a successor. He is also as the professor known to most of the shinobis. He was a kind old man. It was very hard to piss this man off. He had a good control of his temper. He lost it very hard, and when he did lose it, it was for a good reason or when someone was judged wrongly. It would be such situation right now. Saratobi Hiruzen was pissed. No, pissed was an understatement. He was beyond pissed. It was like hell itself. The old Hokage had called an emergency meeting with his council. But of course none knew why exactly. When they had reached the council room, most of them had wanted to leave. The sight they saw was not a pretty one either. At the head of the meeting table stood Saratobi Hiruzen, current Hokage to Konohagakure no Sado, the professor under the shinobi. A cold-headed strategies and known to not blow up very faster at all. But that had changed the moment they had entered the meeting room. His eyes hardened when he saw the council members and every emotion they had held just a few seconds ago went missing. His arms were behind his body and his hands were laced together. He wore the official Hokage robes. He stood tall and proud. His stance screamed downright fear me and power. It was this that told the council members that they were screwed for whatever they did. Sit. His tone left no room for arguing against him. Saratobi eyed each member. He saw the fear in their eyes. He scoffed at that. Yes, they all should be afraid of him right now. Even the clan heads were shaking in front of him. He secretly smiled to himself. That would be something he will never forget. I hope you are happy now. They were confused at those words. What did the Hokage mean by those words? Why should they be happy? It was not like they had something planned and succeed in it. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Asked Inoichi Yamanaka. The old Hokage looked them all directly in the eyes before he continued. It was like he was judging them to see if they were worthy of the answer to this question. Worthy to be in his presence or be a council member. It seems that young Naruto had been ambushed by the villagers. He said in a cold tone to them. They flinched when they heard the tone the old Hokage used on them. It was not nice to say the least. Sure, they hated Naruto. But the tone the Hokage had used on them meant that there was more than this ambush. No one dared to ask if there was more. The Hokage was angered enough as it was. They did not want to offend him more than he was and direct his anger on them. The old Hokage continued in an icy voice. It seemed that young Naruto's apartment was destroyed beyond repairable. But that was not what shocked me the most. What did shock me was the fact the villagers had found out where his apartment was, although it was to no one known than me and Kakashi. Care to explain? No one dared to answer. They could clearly feel his anger and saw it in his eyes. They knew one wrong word from them and his fury would be leashed out on them. Though they shut up. It was better than doing or saying anything at all. It was safer for them too. Saratobi knew that they would not answer. It was disgusting to see of them being such cowards in front of him. Just 5 years ago they were stronger in their minds and stood up to him. They were the council of Konoha, damn it. They should show that they have pride, intelligence and power to be here. Not act like a 5-year-old that is being scolded by its parents. Pathetic was his only thought to this. I thought so. But I know already that you had set ambush on him. It was just too bad that they are loyal to me and not to you. As I was saying. Young Naruto was then kidnapped out of his own home by the villagers and dragged into an alleyway. It was there that they abused him sexual. If it were not for Hada Kakashi coming home from his mission I would have never heard of this. He, like every other time, decided to check up on Naruto like he always did. It is your entire fault that something like this has happened to an innocent child. I hope you can sleep at night with this knowledge. Knowing it could have easily been your child with such a fate. Our village has been proud of the fact that it was safest under the 5 best shinobi villages. Being proud of the fact that everything was running smooth in here. That no one was judged wrong. Or that it was held against them. That it could look underneath the underneath. But it seems that this was only talk. That these were only lies. I am ashamed of being Hokage of this village. I can't believe that something like this can happen in such a proud village. This village isn't any better than any other village out there. A 5-year-old child being so mistreated here. This is not the village that I have sworn to protect. It has completely changed for the worst to come. But what I really want to know from you. How would you act if it were not Naruto with the Kyuubi inside of him? If it were actually one of your children? Would you still act like this toward this child then? No, I think you would not. But it seemed that you all think Naruto had deserved it then. I do not want to see you any longer than I have to. You are dismissed. But that the old and angered Hokage left them without a chance to answer his questions. The members of the council were shocked at what they got to hear. Yes, they hated Naruto and wanted him to have a miserable life. But even that was going too far. No child should have taken away their innocent from them at the mere age of 5. And at their own birthday no less. But it was too late now. They had already set Naruto's fate the day they forced the old Hokage to tell the villagers about the Kyuubi no Yauko being sealed inside of him. Of course they did not want this to happen to him. But their hate was still there. The child was their scapegoat. The one that has to suffer for all of them. Just because of their lost loved ones, this child had to suffer for their problems and faults. The child that had no choice in this matter must now suffer for all of them. The years went by and Naruto had lived together with Kakashi. Kakashi had told the Hokage about this. No way would he let something like this ever happen again to him. As long as he could stop it. Naruto trained under Kakashi what no one knew. It was better that way. Who knew what the council would do should they ever find about this? It would not be a nice little tea party, that was for sure. No, they would want Naruto dead then. Of course Naruto always asked why he was hated by the villagers. Kakashi had only said to him he would tell him when he was older and ready to hear about it. Naruto was confused but didn't press the matter after this anymore. The Hokage had stared wide-eyed at Kakashi when he said this, and because Naruto immediately stopped asking after this. He had tried it for years, and Kakashi only had to say this simple sentence to make him stop. He had face-palmed himself then. It made Naruto laugh at his grandfather. At Naruto's 9th birthday, Kakashi told him why he was hated. He was there to comfort the little blonde through all of this. He did not leave his side through it. The old Hokage had come by the next day and told Naruto that he was going to be a ninja. Of course Naruto was happy. Now he could buy like his Jiji and Otu-san. Kakashi and Sarutobi had laughed when Naruto bounced from the walls. Through the years Naruto hardly made any friends. But it did not irk him. No, he was far too much into his training with his Otu-san. Kakashi had his fun teaching Naruto. He was even happy that he somewhat rubbed off on the little sunshine. Naruto got his laziness and chronicle late being from him. He was so proud of his son. Of course Iruka did not like this fact. But he could not change it. It nearly drove him insane at some point. Of course Naruto got even stealth lesson. It was in form of an orange jumpsuit. He hated it the first time his father had shown it to him. Of course through the years he was not always protected and kindly treated. The villagers still ambushed him when Kakashi was away on missions. His Anbu guards were not there when he needed them. They only stepped in when he was near death and then thought of some lame excuse to tell the Hokage. Too bad was that Kakashi always asked Naruto what happened, who then told the Hokage. It was natural that said Hokage was pissed at them for lying to him and not doing their duty. Sarutobi knew that it was Na and not his Anbus that protected Naruto. But it helped him to get rid of some of them with this. Danzu was of course not happy about this. Losing his agents like this. Naruto was happy when he got on the same team as his best friend. Sasuke Uchiha. Of course no one knew that they were friends. But what they hated was the fact Sakura was in their team too. Of course Naruto had to pretend he liked her. It was an idea his Otu-san came up with. The villagers would stop attacking if he were to be stupid and have a crush on someone. But damn, why had he to pick the Haruno again? He did not knew. Not even Sasuke. It was even more of a surprise to him when he got to hear that his Otu-san was their sensei. It was the best that could happen to him. The day came where he and Sasuke were banished from the village. Chapter 4. The Past 2. Sasuke's Past. It was Sasuke's first day in the academy. He knew that his father wanted him to be the best in everything. Just like Itachi was. He saddened at that thought. It was always Itachi that he was not one time praised for his doing. He knew that he did good in them, but he never got praised. It was always Itachi would have done better than you, or Itachi would have done it faster than you, or Itachi already knew this without my help at this age, you're the worse for him. Itachi could do all of this without any help at all. He is a true genius and was stronger than you at your age. That was not something you said to little child that began its training in being a shinobi. It crushed Sasuke to hear this from his own parents. He knew that even his aunts and uncles compared him and Itachi with each other. Even when they did that in secret. It hurt him to know this, but it hurt him even more to know that they knew that he knew about it. But it was all over now. No one would ever again compare him to Itachi again in his clan. They were all dead now. No one had survived but him and Itachi, when you count him not as the murderer from their clan. But he was. His beloved Aniki had done his. He still could not believe it. His Aniki was the only one that treated him as a real person and not like some scum that was not worth their attention. He was sitting in his bed in the hospital and looked at the blonde boy next to him. He was the same age as him, and it surprised him that some nurses did not want him to be in the same room as this boy. He tilted his head to the side. What is so dangerous about this boy that they did not want him to be in the same room as him? The blonde boy didn't look like he could do anything to him. He was after all out cold and covered in bandages. It was then that the door opened and a silver-haired male entered. He rushed immediately next to the blonde boy. He took a chair and took a seat next to the boy. It was confusing to him, but he learned later that this was the boy's father when the boy woke up and the silver-haired male was asleep. It was from there that they became friends. He had learned his name when the boy woke up. The years in the academy was fun for them. Well, for Naruto they were. Sasuke was getting all broody and moody as the years passed by. Sure, he was still nice to Naruto in private, but that began to change when they both hit the age of 10. Sasuke had stopped to hang around with Naruto and was always alone. He had even yelled one time at Naruto for not leaving him alone. Naruto had tears in his eyes and ran away from him. Sasuke had felt guilty when he had pushed away the only friend he had in this village at his one age. The only person that understood him somewhat and saw him for him. Not the lone survivor of a powerful clan. He was just a normal person to him, nothing more and nothing less. Get a hold of yourself. You don't need him. He is only a useless and weak person. You are an Avenger, you don't need friends. He told himself all the times when he thought about Naruto and felt guilty. But it only hurt him more. He did not have the guts to tell Naruto that he was sorry. He had the feeling that Naruto would never forgive him. But it was for the best, he had told himself. And this is what happened that day that broke their friendship. "Oh, Sasuke, wait up for me," yelled a 10-year-old hyper Naruto running after a 10-year-old Sasuke. Sasuke ignored him and kept going. He didn't need this dope. He had better things to do right now. Like training to avenge his clan for what Itachi had done to him years ago. He had to avenge his clan, and Naruto would only be in the way. "Oh wait, dope. I have better things to do than hanging out with a dead last like you," he said harshly to Naruto. But Sasuke. You promised to train with me today and Otu-san. I have no time for someone like you. Leave me be," he snapped at Naruto. Sasuke. But yo, he was cut of. Urusai. I didn't promise anything to the likes of you. Naruto got tears in his eyes that threatened to spill any moment now. But Sasuke had promised to be with him today and train with him and his Otu-san. What was wrong now? But the tears fell anyways. Those words Sasuke said to him hurt him like nothing what the villagers have done to him. It hurt so much. He turned on his heel and ran away crying like he had never. At this day Kakashi didn't know what was wrong with Naruto, and Sasuke felt like he'd done the worst thing he could do in his entire life. He always told himself it was for the better and that Naruto would never forgive him anyways. But he was proven wrong when he tried to defect the village and Naruto had hunted his sorry ass down. He heard how Naruto said that he had forgiven him for what he had said when they were younger. But he would never forgive him when he would leave the village now. So they started to fight and Naruto won in the end. But their reunion was short-lived when Tsunade told them about the banishment. Neji's past. Neji was devastated when he heard about his father's death, though that his uncle Hiashi could live. He had sworn in this moment to destroy the main family and avenge his father. He had loved his father with all of his heart. He was the only one left after his mother had died. And now he was all alone. It was all the fault of the main family. To him they were the devil in person. They should pay for what they had done to him. It was from this on his hate for the main branch was awakened and he began to train like his life depended on it. It was only shortly after his 11th birthday did he met someone that changed him forever and that someone would become his adopted Itaudo. "Hey, why are you crying?" asked Neji, the blonde boy who was sitting crying on a swing. It's Hick because my Hick, sob friend Hick, sob hat hates me now." Neji was at loss here. He didn't know what to do. That was completely new to him. Even though he is said to be prodigy in the ways of the ninja. But this was something totally different altogether. He sighed and rubbed his temples. Maybe he should just leave and wait till someone other does something about him. But as far as he had seen, no one wanted to be even in the same area as him. No children and especially their parents. Though it was left to him. "What did your friend do?" he asked the little blonde. Well, the blonde had calmed down a bit and told him about the encounter with his friend. "So your friend has said this to you though he doesn't have to see you again?" Neji asked the little one who nodded at him. "That wasn't nice of him. Not after what you have told me you guys went through together." The little boy smiled at him and nodded. Neji had warmed up to the little blonde while he began his tale. It had amazed him how the little boy had this effect on him. He noticed how he smiled around the boy more than he had done since the death of his father. It was saying something. "What is your name?" Neji asked the blonde boy sitting now in his lap. "Uzumaki Naruto." "Unai-chan?" Naruto asked him with big and innocent eyes. Neji was taken back by this. "Nii-chan? He thinks so highly of me after only talking to me for a few hours." Neji smiled at the little blonde in his lap and ruffled his hair. Naruto pouted at him, which gave him the look like a kicked puppy. If Neji weren't a boy he would have screamed kawaii, but he was. "My name is Hyuga Neji Itaudo," he said to his new Itaudo. Naruto had smiled brightly at him and hugged the daylights out of him at this day and then dragged him to meet his father. He was surprised to find out that Hada Kakashi was Naruto's father. They didn't look anything alike. It was only a week later that he found out that Naruto was adopted by Kakashi. He had began to hang more out with Naruto and trained with him. He had never forgiven the Uchiha for what he had done to Naruto. He even had to play like Naruto had to do. He had found about the Kyuubi from Naruto when he thought he could trust him. Neji was surprised by this but never turned his back to Naruto. In fact, they became better friends and siblings. Neji was even laughing at him for the Sakura crush thing. Naruto didn't found it funny. But all their acting was short-living after Sasuke tried to deflect from the village. Even after Naruto brought Sasuke back. Neji, Kakashi and Iruka still haven't forgiven the Uchiha that easily. It was only 2 years into their banishment that they did. Iruka's and Kakashi's past. Kakashi and Iruka had become great friends after the Kyuubi attack. If you call it friendship, that is. It was more of a IRUKA annoying the living daylights out of Kakashi at any given chance friendship. They were causing more trouble than any good in the village. The Hokage was happy when after 5 long years full of trouble between the two, it was silent. But now Naruto was the problem. Although the little boy had better ideas than Kakashi and Iruka together. The two had teamed up against Naruto and lost in the end. They lost big in the end and with hands down on this. It was just not fair how a 4-year-old beat them. The Hokage and the Anbis had good laughs through this whole competition. But that all came to end on Naruto's 5th birthday. Iruka had heard from it by the Hokage himself. He too was sometimes around Naruto and could never come to hate the little ball of sunshine. He was just too cheerful and so full of life. But he was surprised when he later found out that Kakashi had adopted Naruto. He had thought that the boy had now a better future. The attack still continued and it seemed nothing was better for the poor boy. But this time he had Kakashi there who made sure hell was to pay when he found out about it. And he always found out. But his thinking changed when he found out that Naruto took up Kakashi's habits in being lazy and to come too late to meetings. Kakashi was happy after he had adopted Naruto. But it changed when he found out that the villagers still tried to assassinate, beat and rape him. He knew this from Naruto. Of course he told the Hokage about this. But he did not understand why Naruto never told it the Hokage himself. He didn't try to ask him. If Naruto didn't want to tell the Hokage then so be it. He knew that Naruto would tell him and then he would tell the Hokage. He was only happy that Iruka helped him in the matter of raising Naruto. He did get a good laugh when Iruka found out that Naruto picked up his habits of being late and lazy. Iruka was trying so often to make Naruto be on time. But every attempt was busted by the little ball of energy. "Please Naruto?" asked Iruka a 10-year-old Naruto. "No you," was the answer. "Maybe you should give up. It is Naruto we are talking here to," said a brown-haired boy. Ma Neji, let Iruka try it. It is fun to watch how Naruto makes him cry," said a silver-haired man with a masked face. "I know but really. This is getting ridiculous," sighed Neji out. "I treat you to lunch." Naruto perked up by this. Iruka's eyes lit up with hope. But then Naruto crushed his hope without any warnings and mercy. No. Kakashi and Neji were watching this at the sidelines and laughing. Naruto was merciless when it came to his habits. It was really a sight to see. Iruka on his hands and knees begging a 10-year-old to be on time. It was just something that should never happen in the first place. "When do you think Iruka will give up?" "I say in 10 minutes. You? 5. Loser has to run around Konoha naked." "Deal?" came in Neji's replay to this. "Deal." Both, boy and man, shook their hands. 10 minutes later and Iruka had given up. It was no use. Naruto would never change. But maybe it was for the better. "Ooh, oh damn you Neji," was heard through Konoha this fateful day. Naruto and Iruka wondered why Kakashi was screaming no and damn you Neji so loud but shrugged it off. It was Kakashi after all. No one really knew how the man really ticked in the inside. The next day was something Konoha would never forget and would be going down in history. A naked-headed Kakashi was going around the village and any women fainted at the sight. Mothers had sworn revenge at the man while shielding their children's eyes. Time skipped 5 years, 3rd year in the banishment. It was now 3 years ago since the banishment. Naruto, Neji, Sasuke, Iruka and Kakashi journeyed the whole elemental nations. They trained under different people and even had some run-ins with the Akatsuki. But each time they could flee before something happened to them. Each of them had their own level and was known in the bingo book under S-class or A-class. Naruto together with Neji were SS class. Both had a flee on sight warning standing in their profile when they are seen alone. But together it said you can go and plan your funeral. Kakashi was S-class with a flee on sight text. Iruka and Sasuke were both A-class. Not with a flee on sight text but another one. It was more like being groups of 20 when you wanted to fight them. Sasuke was sore about that fact that he was A-class and not S-class. But like Naruto had said to him it was better than B-class. He was still not happy about this fact but had to accept it. They were now in snow country. They needed some time to just relax. All those years being on the run and training like there was no tomorrow was sure hard. Naruto had it the worst because he had to train in his dreams while he meditate and when he was awake to get used to all of his power. Even so Kyuubi let him only use it in small doses. Didn't want the little brat to die now and him too. Neji had decided to make the same training as him. He would have never thought it was that hard. Sasuke, Iruka and Kakashi on the other hand were not so interested in it. Kakashi and Iruka were always talking with Sasuke about the things he had done to Naruto and sent him through a guilt trip. They would not so easy forgive, that was clear. But they had done it. While they all gained names in the bingo book, their relationship between them changed altogether. Neji was still Naruto's older brother, only change was now that Sasuke counted to it now too. Iruka was the mother even though Naruto still thinks of Tsunade in this place. Kakashi the father. He was it for all three of them. Like Iruka was the mother. It was really weird when you didn't know about the past they had all together. Tsunade was always updated on them. In those years Naruto had signed the summon contract of foxes and wolves. Gabamonta and the other boss summons had a staring match when Naruto had summoned them all. The fox boss was a giant white nine-tailed kitsune. She was about the same height as Kyuubi. She had blue eyes and went by the name of Junsei. She was the mother of the Kyuubi, or how Naruto called him, Hero. His rightful name. The wolf was taller than Junsei and a jet black fur. It was a male and he had wide eyes. He went by the name of Kachiku. The name went perfectly with him. Naruto had sweat dropped when this happened and just left. He had better things to do than this. Like eating ramen, pocky and dango. When it was night and Naruto came back to check up on them. He had sweat dropped. They had still stared at each other and Naruto had enough of it. He wanted to know if he was accepted as summoner or not. That was why he used an ice jutsu on them. Naruto had sweat dropped when he found 3 ice statues of his boss summons there. It was only after 3 long days of melting the ice that Naruto got his answer if they had accepted him or not. "We, the wolves, accept you as our summoner, pup. We look forward fighting with you," were Kachiku's words. "We, the foxes, accept you as our summoner, kid." I had agreed anyways. "If you can tolerate my hero then you deserve to be able to summon us foxes. I can't wait to fight with you," were Junsei's words. "Bulgaki, seems you have 2 more summons. And I still don't get it why you didn't allow us to take Konoha down." With those parting words Gabamonta left. Naruto had only sweat dropped and left the area. He had muttered about crazy toads, wolves and foxes for 3 days. Sasuke and Iruka had stared at him for a long time. Kakashi had shrugged it off and Neji acted like everything was normal. Well, to him it was normal the way Naruto acted. He always was like this. Even though his real character was more like Kakashi without the pervert part. The next year was the same for them. Training and fighting bounty hunters, Oinins, Anbus and everyone other that wanted the bounty on their heads. It was getting on Naruto's nerves till Hiro told him about the jump into another dimension. It was pretty safe and no one could follow them because only demons know this jutsu and were able to do it. "So what do you guys say?" Naruto asked them. It would be nice to have normal life without those Oinins, Anbus and Akatsuki after us," said Neji to him. "Okay. I am in." Naruto grinned at him and then turned to the others with a kicked puppy look. Of course they didn't stand a chance against it. With Naruto's new look it was working better than ever. Sasuke was the first to give in, then came Kakashi and then Iruka. "Fine Naruto, we are in," said Iruka with a sigh. "Yay. Okay guys, I need you touch me or you are left behind," he warned them with a serious face. When Naruto was sure that everyone had a good grip on him, he started to do the hand seals. It took him a damn long time to do them all and use enough of his yaki to get everyone with him. There was a blinding light and Neji, Iruka, Kakashi, Sasuke and Naruto were gone in a flash. Nothing was left of them being ever in the clearing. Now that Naruto thought about it, what will Tsunade do when she doesn't get any letters? "Calm down, kid. You can still use your summons to send letters to her. They are still working for you even though you are in another dimension. And now be quiet, I want to sleep. Oh yeah, and try to find out where you and the others landed. It would you do no good if you do something stupid here," rumbled Hiro's voice through his head. Naruto nodded even so Hiro could not see it. The only thing Naruto saw before he blacked out was that they were in a forest and then it was black. It was only days later that he came back and found himself surrounded by his brothers and parents. Naruto laughed when he saw Neji, Sasuke and Iruka. "Oh, it did work. I can't wait to see their faces when they see their new looks," he thought while rolling on the ground with laughter. "Yes, he is okay," said Sasuke and sighed. Neji and Iruka shook their heads. They didn't know why Naruto was laughing, but it had to be something good it seems. You see, Naruto and Hiro had decided to make Sasuke, Neji and Iruka look more feminine. Not as extreme as him but to a degree. Naruto was getting annoying with the teasing about him being a girl. Though this was his revenge. Naruto couldn't even undo it. But Neji, Iruka and Sasuke did not only look feminine too. No, they could get pregnant too. Not that they knew that now. Naruto thought better of not to tell them. They would kill him for this, he was sure about it. But the only thing Naruto had not known was that he could pregnant too after he and Hiro had merged. Hiro knew his sexual preference and wanted to make sure Naruto still could get his family that he wished to have. Hiro dreaded the day to come when he had to tell Naruto. Maybe he could hide deep in the forest here. But Naruto could find him easily when he turned it back into the sewer. Though that was out of option for him. When Naruto had calmed down enough to talk again, they began to search for information about this new dimension. It was good that they had their ninja training. It was easy for them to gather the information then. They had split up to find out more about this dimension and wanted to meet up in this clearing here again after 4 days were over. It should be enough days to get the information they needed here. When the 4 days were over they found themselves here in the clearing again. Naruto and Kakashi were the last ones to arrive. Over a week. They each had found out much about this world. It was nearly the same as their old home. The only difference were that the technology was more developed than theirs. The history was different too, but that was nothing what they couldn't learn in a matter of days with the Shadow Clone's help. They even had to forge false papers about them and get Iruka and Kakashi a job, find a house and get Naruto, Neji and Sasuke in school. It was going to take really long till that was all finished for them. The next month was spending in finding a house, a job and catching up in this world's history and the rest that was needed to know about it. Naruto got it easily down with Neji and Iruka together. But Sasuke and Kakashi had problems with it. Naruto and Kakashi were laughing when Iruka, Neji and Sasuke could finally see themselves in a mirror. They had fainted on the spot and only woke a week later up. Naruto had only told Kakashi about it though. Good thing was that the pervert promised not to tell them. He was glad for this. The next 3 months were spent with buying furniture for the house they had found. They were lucky it was near their school and not many neighbors were around them. Hiro still pushed Naruto over his limits when they were there. Neji and Sasuke were going lighter at their training and Kakashi and Iruka were too busy with the house to train at all. It took a damn long time till it was finished. It was then that Iruka and Kakashi were enrolling them in Karakura High. Kakashi was working there as one of the PE teachers and Iruka had a restaurant opened. They had it good. But it was too nice till they ran into a little problem which goes by the name of hollow. Not that they knew that it was a hollow that had attacked them to that time. It was only after Naruto had a little talk with Hiro did he knew what it was. But he could not give them enough information about it. He was the first time here and only knew from other demons about this dimension. Hiro had thought it would be the best for them to come here and start a new life. They still could fight here enemies. But could have a normal life here. No Oinins, Anbis or Akatsuki after them. The latter should be having a fit by now with Naruto's going missing now. Everything was fine for them now. But when Naruto and Neji had this little meeting with the giant Fatso and Ulquiorra it changed for them. Then flashback and here we are. Sitting with you guys. Finished Neji after he took a sip of his tea. It was silent in the shop. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts. Hitsugaya was watching Naruto in a new light. He would have never thought that someone would still be sane after going through such a treatment. But here Naruto was normal as he can be. Naruto was sitting next to our white-haired Taichu now and lost in thought. Matsumoto and Renji had new respect for Naruto now. Orihime didn't know what to think about it much like Chad and Ryu. Ichigo, Urahara and Rukia were talking about the new information though. They had never heard something like this. And they were watching how Hitsugaya eyed Naruto with concern. Neji and Sasuke were both eyeing the white-haired captain. Orihime was the first to break the silence. She had said something to Naruto that eased his fears of being rejected from them. That is so sad. How could they do that to you? She had hugged him. Naruto was first stiff in the hug but slowly relaxed and returned it. He was glad that he was accepted here and not shunned like in his old home. Thanks Orihime. He said with a small smile and let go of her. Damn that was some shit you went through. Voice Renji all their thoughts out. No kidding there. You can count on us. We are your friends now. Rukia said to him with a smile. Thanks guys really. Neji and Sasuke smiled to themselves. It was good to see Naruto like this again. He had now friends here that he could really count on. And as someone that has a crush on him. Oh that could be fun to teach them to not make their Itato crier upset in any way. Kakashi and Iruka would have their fun on him too. They saw Naruto jumped into Hitsugaya's lap when Matsumoto tried to glomp him again. Hitsugaya was getting a nice shed of red. It was promptly seen by Matsumoto who squealed in delight and began to talk about her Taichu having a crush. Matsumoto. But it was no use. Matsumoto was already in her ranting modus. Naruto was sitting snickering in his lap. He had forgotten where he was sitting and quite frankly didn't care. It was comfortable there and it smelled nice too. It smelled like the forest after the rain and cherries. He liked the scent already. It was soothing to him. Hitsugaya on the other hand wondered why Naruto hadn't left his lap yet. Not that he was complaining. No, he liked it in fact. It was in this moment that Urahara took a photo of them. Naruto blinked a few times when there was a flash. It earned him always from the females in the room. And a face full of breasts. Hitsugaya felt sympathy for the blonde boy. No one should really face such a fate. The white-haired Taichu would not even wish Aizen such a fate. Well maybe he would. But the asshole would have died a happy death then. Something that the traitor didn't deserve at all. It should be something much more worse than death by Matsumoto's breasts. Need oxygen. Was what Naruto gasped out. Oh kawaii. Was the response and he was squeezed harder. Ah Matsumoto you should let go of Naruto. Said Ryu. Why? I think that his brothers does not like it that he can't breathe and the stare your Taichu is giving here, you would be dead by then if looks could kill Rukia said to her while backing away in a faraway corner together with Ichigo, Urahara Chad, Ishida and Orihime. Oh? And true to Rukia's word. Hitsugaya, Neji and Sasuke were surrounded by an evil aura. Thunder roared behind their backs, it was raining and the sky was dark with black clouds looming in it. How it was possible to see all of that in the room was still a wonder to everyone in the room. But they didn't question it. It was after all nothing new to them when they thought about it. They knew that Shinigamis did exist, although it should not be possible at all. And that Rukia's drawing makes even the strongest person cry. So why be surprised by this? Aniki-sama, Nai-chan, Shiro-chan. Naruto whimpered out with the puppy eyes. And hell broke loose. Aniki-sama, Neji, was tackling Matsumoto, Nai-chan, Sasuke, was freeing Naruto, and Shiro-chan, Hitsugaya, took Naruto in his arms and glared at everyone that came in a 1-meter radius to them. The other sweat dropped at this behavior. So un-Hitsugaya-like. It was more the way they thought Naruto's brothers would react, and Ichigo and Renji. But not the cool-headed white-haired Taichu. But it was funny to watch how Matsumoto was assaulted by Neji and Sasuke. Naruto sure knew how to use these eyes. If someone other would use this power to their advantage, they would be dead. Or worse. You never know what Naruto was planning with this brain of his. It could be your downfall then when you are on his bad side and have him pissed off at you. The other were even surprised that Naruto could call Hitsugaya Shiro-chan without getting killed or yelled at. They knew that not even Momo could call him that without a comment fired back at her. But that was all soon forgotten when Neji stopped the assault and did some hand seals and let his hand slap on the ground. Kuchiyus no jutsu, and with a poof of smoke there stood a hyena. Yoniji-sama. You called. Yes, I did, Jen. I need you tell our parents we're coming later. Got that? Bye. And with that the hyena was gone while laughing like a loon. No way. You have summons too. Am I the only one who doesn't have any summons in our family? Asked Sasuke disbelieving while pointing a shaking finger at Neji. Well, you were the one who didn't want to train together with Naruto, and I found 2 contracts and signed them. Neji said, smirking at him. So not fair. He moaned and forget his assault at Matsumoto too. What is the second one? He was afraid to ask, but he wanted to know. Hats was the replay with a smirk. Sasuke was in a corner and crying. It was just not fair that everyone in their family had summons. Hell, even Iruka had one. But not him. Why? The world was so unfair to him. Neji was smirking on the other hand. It was fun to see his other Itato suffer like this. But it was his own fault. He was the one who didn't want to train with him. It was not like Naruto said it was forbidden. He chuckled and took a seat next to the crying and sulking Uchiha and poked him. The others were lost. They didn't know what they meant with summons, and it was strange to see a hyena coming out of nowhere with a poof of smoke. That was the highest on the weirdo ranking for them. Even that was too strange for them. Death god or not. Ni. Why is he so down now? Asked Urahara. Being the first one to speak after this. Well, you see. Where we come from, it is very rare to find a summoning contract, have one, or let alone being allowed to summon the summons. The summons can choose if they like the summoner or not. If they don't like them, they can delete the name on their contract. If they do like them, then you can summon them. But the summons are picky when it comes to their summoner. This is why it is so rare to have one. I had luck in finding them and be accepted as their summoner. Sometimes you even have to do some ridiculous test to prove if you are worthy enough to summon them. Explained Neji to them. In our world was it rare to have 1 contract, but 2 is even more rare. Hell, to even have 3 should not be possible. But it is. Naruto has 3. The toads, wolves and foxes. All 3 have accepted him. The summons can aid us in fights, bring messages to someone important if not trusted with the normal way, or to help you all day. But most of the time they are used for the first and second option. He told them. Or used for fun and play pranks. Added Naruto. Yes, that too. And we know that you use them always in this way. Like when we were in a supermarket and they didn't had any ramen for you. Said Sasuke and shuddered at the memory. The poor manager will never be the same anymore. The thing Naruto did was worse than humiliating. Even worse than death itself. Naruto without his ramen is like telling Kakashi and Jiraiya aren't perverts at heart. Neji was white when he thought about this. Naruto was not calm till he got his precious ramen. Please don't remind of this. Ever. Again. Neji hissed to him. Okay. Sasuke chuckled nervously when he saw the glare. The others blinked owlishly at them. They didn't get it. And it is better for them they didn't, and hopefully never will. It was just something that no one should ever see or witness. No one noticed how Hitsugaya was looking at Naruto and blush when Naruto turned to him. That is save for 2 overprotective brothers. Naruto somehow had wrenched his way out of Hitsugaya's grip and was now staring at the cat. The cat stared back and he could have sworn that the cat was grinning at him. The others' sweat dropped at his behavior. Of course they knew it was Yaruchi save for Sasuke and Neji. They all wondered how they would react when Yaruchi would transform back in front of them. Sasuke somehow got Neji to talk with Renji. He wanted this to work. He knew that Neji would probably kill him if he ever found out about this plan of his. Oh, who was he kidding? Neji wouldn't probably kill him. He will kill him in the worst way possible. But it would be worth it. His brother needed to get laid. He wasn't the only one thinking like that. Kakashi and Iruka were with him on this one. Naruto was too innocent for that. In their opinion at least he was. If they only knew that their little innocent Itato knew more about sex than them combined. It would destroy them. No, it would make them want to die. Naruto could never be like this. Oh, if only they knew that he wasn't as innocent as he seemed. But that is another story. For another time. And another fanfiction altogether. "Oh, I know you aren't a real cat," Naruto said to the cat. Everyone in the room froze. Sasuke and Neji looked at Naruto and then the cat, then Naruto back at the cat, and then Naruto again. What was he talking about? That was a cat. They couldn't detect anything abnormal from it. It was just that a stupid and normal house cat. Neji had to knew he had cats as summons. But on the other hand they weren't normal cats though his words had no meaning here. The cat blinked at him and cocked its head to the side. Naruto smirked it back. "I know what you are smirked." It was then that Urichi knew that the kid wouldn't leave her alone till she dropped this act. Naruto smirked widened as if knowing what the cat was thinking. Said cat was twitching at this smirked and wanted to wipe it off of this brat's face. The cat suddenly smirked. Of course Urichi could, but only when the brat was the same as Ichigo that is. Oh, if only Urichi knew how wrong she was. A cloud of smoke was surrounding her which made Naruto cough. When the smoke cleared a tanned woman with purple hair was standing in the place of the cat. A very naked woman that is. Sasuke, Neji and Naruto's eyes widened, but not by much. Ichigo, Chad and Ishida were a beet red and turned their heads away. Urahara's checks were tainted a faint pink and Hitsugaya looked at Naruto. He was surprised that Naruto didn't yell, blushed or got a nosebleed. The woman who had been smirking got it whipped off of her face. Why was that not working? It even worked with Urahara. Why not him? "I am gay," he said in a flat voice, but it still sounded cheerfully. "Us too." "So yeah, it doesn't work," said Neji when he saw the purple-haired woman turn to them. The brothers laughed at the woman's expression. The woman was pouting while getting dressed and was sulking in a corner when finished. It was the same corner Sasuke had occupied earlier. Strange. Naruto doubted it now the emo corner and Neji shook his head. Hitsugaya was surprised by this announcement from them. Ichigo and others choked on their saliva and nearly died. Naruto was chuckling alongside his brothers and thought that those people were strange. Stranger than themselves. That was saying something on itself to him. When he thought about something stranger than themselves shouldn't be possible but it is. "Ah yes, that is Urichi," said Urahara again playing with his fan. "Strange name," was the only thing Naruto said. Urichi was more sulkier than before. Did he just hear right? Was Urichi whimpering? Naah. Couldn't be or could it, thought Urahara while still playing with his fan. But he ignored and assumed playing with his fan while watching the others. It was fun to see so much young people in his little cozy place here. It was not every day that this happened to him, but it did after he met Ichigo and his friends. He silently wondered if he should have helped them back them. Then he could have now a silent evening and had nothing to do. He could relax and do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. Oh, who was he kidding? He had missed those adventures and now with Ichigo and his friends here it was never a dull moment in his life. He really had missed this. "I think you broke her," said Ishida while adjusting his glasses. "Nah," said Sasuke after he had eyed her. "I think she's fine. So I think we should leave." "It's already 8," said Ichigo after he had checked the watch. "Really? Thought it would be longer," said Naruto with a shrug. "Alright, then hush. Go home then," said Urahara cheerfully to them while hiding a grin behind his fan. A sweat dropped at his behavior but left nonetheless. A pouting Urichi was enough for them. They had seen everything now. But really they didn't want to see a pouting Urichi ever again. It was somehow scary. Each of them departed on their way home at corners or streets to reach their homes till only Sasuke, Neji and Naruto were left. The three had much to think about this. 3 identical smirks made their way on their faces. Oh, they couldn't wait to fight anymore. And this Asian guy that Hitsugaya told them about sounded like fun to fight. "This going to be so much fun," exclaimed a happy and bouncy blonde. "Which he will never change." "Nah, but then he wouldn't be Naruto," said Neji to the twitching Sasuke. They silently went home after this. They really couldn't wait to tell their father and mother about this. It's sure going to be a big surprise for them. Naruto on the other hand was already thinking of pranks to play on his new friends. It was a tradition to him. Every new friend he got was a prank pulled on. If they like it or not. He didn't really care. A prank is a prank to him. Somehow Neji and Sasuke got the feeling that Ichigo and his friends would have a week full of surprises before them. What if banished Naruto refuses to help Konoha and Bleach? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.